Morning and welcome to the public hearing and public meeting of the Landmarks Preservation Commission today, January 30th, 2024. We'll begin this morning by taking attendance, and I'll turn it over to our Director of Intergovernmental and Community Affairs, Stephen Thompson, to call the roll.
All right, Chair Sarah Carroll.
Here.
Commissioner Fred Bland. Here. Commissioner Diana Chapin. Joining us
Here.
Commissioner Wellington Chen. Here. Commissioner Mark Ginsburg. Okay, Commissioner Michael Goldblum here. Commissioner Jean Lupke. Commissioner Angie Master.
Here.
Okay, so we are Blackburn Commissioner Ann Holford Smith and Commissioner Stephen Chu.
Great, thank you, and welcome again to our January 30th, 2024 public hearing and public meeting. This meeting is being held in our hearing room at 1 Center Street. It is also being held via Zoom and live streamed on our YouTube channel if people would like to participate remotely. We're going to begin this morning with a public meeting agenda to review two items which have already had public hearings and for which we've already heard testimony and are back today with revisions to present in response to our comments at the initial public hearing. And we have another public meeting item, which is an item that was read into the record on January 23rd. So we will be opening up the public hearing to allow the applicants to present and the public to testify. And then we will move to our public hearing agenda to review new applications for work on designated properties. And with that, I'll turn it over to Corey Harala, our Director of Preservation, to take us through the agendas.
All right, good morning, everyone. While it seems our audio is working, I just did get word that our staff that puts the presentations up on the screen had to reboot. So I will read slowly as I do the first item into the record, and hopefully we'll be up and running soon. All right. So to start today's Preservation Department agenda, we're going to begin with public meeting item number 1. That's LPC 23-11611. It's an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the borough of Manhattan, block 627, lot 1, 829 Greenwich Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. This is a modern building designed by Matthew Baird and constructed pursuant to Certificate of Appropriateness 03-7041, issued on May 15th, 2003. The application is to alter the facades and construct new rooftop structures and other elements. This was last presented at the public hearing of August 8th, 2023. No action was taken at that time. The applicants have made revisions to the proposal and will present them as soon as we get it up on the screen after we open the proceedings.
Just hang on one moment. We have to open the proceedings. So Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to open the proceedings? Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so you may go ahead and speak, but just give us a moment to load the presentation.
There's on the screen, there's a button to acknowledge that the content is being sent to a third party. Strike click, got it, or it's just this is no action.
Is this ready?
I think the public needs to
Oh, we have to open, right.
yeah, that's fine, yeah. Yep.
It's still not. We can't. This is a makeshift measure off by the control slides.
Good morning, commissioners. We've Jonathan Taylor with Taking Space for our partners, preservation consultants. I'm joined by Alexander Barker and Annie Paz of Barker Associates Architecture Office, as well as Jenny Young, the building owner. We're here to present a revised proposal for 829 Greenwich Street in the Greenwich Village Historic District. I'm going to deliver the presentation. Alex and Annie are available to respond to design questions. 829 Greenwich is a modern townhouse approved by the commission in 2003 on Greenwich Street between Horatio Street and Gansmore Street. Next slide, please.
Sorry, this is telling me that this doesn't go to soon.
I know, but it's okay.
Well,
So I think it's just showing.
yeah, if it doesn't go to a Zoom feed, we have a problem because this is. I know, but we have, is it, oh, I'm sorry, there's no commissioner remote, so yes. So we can do it. Oh. No, but that means everyone has to have access. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so it's just not good doing on if.
Well, actually, access is on our website, which is exactly how we're accessing it.
I think since we'll be visible from the people who are on Zoom, aren't necessarily watching. That's the problem. They're not watching our YouTube video. So we could tell them to watch it, would be the only way I think we can sort of bridge this gap.
So it's like signaling.
Yeah, so
It's not Halo, it's not.
yeah, she's gonna try to go for the desk.
So we are having some technical difficulty with our video. So I'd like to ask all members of the public who are watching to just hang on and bear with us for a few moments until we can adjust. I think we're good to go.
Just add these back on, so we're gonna just try this. It's not like appearing on YouTube. Oh, share screen? People on Zoom can see it. Can see what? Yeah. Can see the presentation. Okay, well, that's good. All right, I think let's go with that.
All right.
So, not now. What? Not now. I thought everything was. There we go.
Will I be able to advance here?
I can do it now. Right now, you're. Okay, now they can see it? Okay.
Shall I go? Okay. Okay, so once again, 829 Greenwich is a modern townhouse approved by the commission in 2003. It's located on Greenwich Street between Horatio and Gansford. Next slide, please. Just some views of the existing building in its context, including historic residential buildings to the. It's not being covered up for people on screen. It looks like it's not. Never mind. Okay. Including historic residential buildings with storefronts to the south in the Greenwich Village District and an improved contemporary commercial building adjacent to the north in the Gansford Market District. Next slide, please. Commissioners may remember that the project was conceived to address a host of severe building performance and habitability issues stemming from the original design. including uncontrolled solar gain, poor thermal performance, water infiltration, and light and air deficiencies. These resulted not only in deterioration of the building, but the flourishing of mold that sickened the owner's family. The project has also been designed to bring the house into passive house standards, a goal that several commissioners commended. Next slide, please. The current proposal responds to commissioners' concerns while still achieving these key project goals. Here's the existing street facade with rendered elevations of the proposal previously presented to you and the current revision. The existing building features a monumental steel plate set asymmetrically forward of a curtain wall system. The previous proposal retained the steel plate, introducing large-scale window openings to provide light and ventilation. These windows intersected with the plate's edges, and recessed portions of the facade on either side would be clad in brick to improve the durability and insulation of the envelope. Commissioners commented that the proposed windows were too large and had too great an impact on the steel plate by their size and by breaking out of its edges, and that the curvilinear forms were foreign to the building. Some commissioners expressed openness to the material change at the sides, but the comments were oriented overall to a comprehensive rethink. So the proposal has been revised, a series of smaller rectilinear window openings set entirely within the steel plate. This change provides the additional light and ventilation required while satisfying commissioner concerns in a few principal ways. The size of the openings is in keeping with the scale of residential windows in the district. There's an appropriate hierarchy to the windows. The parlor floor windows are larger than those above, as is customary in residential buildings in the historic district. The window pattern placement responds to the existing design of the facade. They're grouped by floor, but they also don't align with each other exactly. They float a little bit in a way that echoes the way that the plate itself floats asymmetrically on the front facade. And the windows are subsidiary to the plate, being entirely placed within it without breaking to the edges. And the size of the windows being broken down into smaller units that sort of modulates the impact intervention into the solid plate. The revised design also retains a curtain wall to the recessed sides of the street facade, replacing the existing one with a new triple glaze system that will provide the needed passive house performance and light and air requirements, while maintaining the materiality of the original design and that contrast between the glazed area and the solid plate. Next slide, please. The rear facade is not visible, but some commissioners noted that a redesign should maintain the relationship between the street and rear facades. But like the previous proposal, the current design replaced the large glass wall with a stucco facade with punched openings, by removing curved corners from some windows so that the rectilinear windows arranged somewhat irregularly echo the design approach to the front. And on the roof, also you can see here, the previous proposal to replace the existing large visible skylight with a new stair bulkhead, solar canopy, and small rear greenhouse remains the same, with a small additional proposal of relocating mechanical units from the main roof to a minimally visible location on the new bulkhead roof. Next slide, please. So a few more details about the front design. In addition to what I just noticed, a couple other elements of the new design to take note of. The proportions of the windows in the plate are based on or congruent with the rectangular proportions of the plate itself. And then the placement of the windows at each floor, again, they sort of float up and down a little bit, but their vertical position is bound in each floor by the alignment of the horizontal mullions in the curtain wall at each floor. Next slide, please. Just some section details of the new facade. These are the windows in the inserted into the plate. You can see that the window is set in plane behind the plate itself, so that it exposes the steel at the edge of the plate and preserves that as a legible, distinct layer. Next slide, please. And also details of the new curtain wall and the approved insulation at the front facade here on the south side, which is all fixed. And next slide. Sections through the operable vents on the north side, and also showing the spandrel condition. Next slide, please. So just the new proposal on the street side in context. Next slide. Turning quickly to the rear, just a reminder of the existing conditions of the rear facade. And next slide, please. Elevation, existing and proposed drawings. Again, a stucco clad rear facade with rectangular window openings with metal windows. Next slide, please. Again, at the roof, the mechanical equipment relocated to the upper roof location that'll be minimally visible and minimally seen only in the context of the adjacent higher roof with its own rooftop typical vents and railings. Next slide, please. Now we have some, these are, as I said, minimally visible only from very limited locations. These are a couple of street views. And on the next slides, some more street views going both down Ratio Street, advanced, and Greenwich Street, including in the following slides, updates of the original mock-up photos done for the visibility of the previous proposal, again, showing this very small visibility from certain angles. And the last slide, I think, is going further down Greenwich. And that's it. So, any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
So is the steel plate being removed and then installed, or is this work going to be done around it? Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so thank you very much. It was a very well-prepared presentation. So commissioners, as Jonathan noted, that when we saw this last time, we understood both the issues they were having with the water infiltration in the mold, and also understood and commended their goals for their passive, passive house and energy efficiency goals. And so we noted that there really were kind of two options. One would be to start all over with a new design, and two was to work with this design. And if that was the approach they wanted to take, we asked that they confine the window openings to the steel plate and not overlap, and that they simplify and regularize those openings. Looking to the historic district's context and still may be able to abstract from that, but to look at that for proportions and scale. And many people were comfortable with the rear facade, but some did also ask that be a little regularized to relate better to the front. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Ginsburg, you were one that specifically asked for the glass sides to be.
Yeah. So my first comment, this is much better than before. I also again want to compliment on doing passive house and putting in solar panels and making an energy efficient building. The one question I have, and I'm not sure of the answer, and I look forward to hearing from other commissioners, is the lack of alignment between the windows in the steel plate. The jogging up and down seems to me to be calling a little attention to itself, and it might be better if it went straight across, but that's not a big comment, and I'm just interested to hear what others say. But in general, this is a vast improvement.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen.
I'm talking about this is vastly improved over the previous proposal, and I have no problem with the existing pattern. I think it's really conceptual. Well done.
Vice Chair Bland.
Agree. This is, I think, a real smart response to our comments the last time around. And we've achieved a lot without making too many changes to, I think, what was a fairly radical and contemporary scheme that was approved, and I'm glad it's not been thrown out and started earlier with some replication of the idea from the past. With regard to the windows that Commissioner Ginsburg just mentioned, I think the floating aspect of these windows is what gives it character. And as was suggested in the presentation, the floating nature of the steel screen itself suggests that the windows should float like this rather than move on the line. So I'm perfectly comfortable with the way it is now.
Thank you. Commissioner Master.
I agree with the other commissioners. In terms of the window design, I like it. I also like the floating window aspect of it, which allows the light without being, overwhelming the building and still retaining, kind of focus on the steel plate. So I can find this appropriate.
Commissioner Jefferson?
I think last night, a conceptual facade based on materiality, 410 and rigid grid system. And I think it's severe and conceptual, but I like it. I think there's no softness in this facade, for sure. The rear facade, rear convention, I think that's fine. The only issue I have is the mechanical units on the roof that's highly visible, I think. And there's that angle plane that directs the view to it. So the original, you don't see the units at all. In this one, you do. Unless I'm making a mistake somewhere. No.
Yeah, so you kept the top of them, although they are still against the backdrop of the taller adjacent building.
And I can't see why working with the staff, it can't be lowered down and placed somewhere else because I thought there's a rule that I go by, they should be visible. But
Okay.
that's what other commissioners do.
Baldwin?
I agree with, Eduardo. I think the AC should be not moved so that it is less visible. That can be done with staff. I agree with Mark that the windows, when I look at the streetscape view, for me, in this view, I felt that the windows just look out of place with the dancing windows. So I think some form of regularization would be what I would recommend. And I also thought that the spandrel glass was kind of light. It kind of draws attention to itself. It's very light and bright and kind of pulls you into what's basically a very dark facade. So I thought that could be looked at, but all those can be addressed with staff.
Yeah, thanks. And Commissioner Chapin?
I think that the design in general is really, it's worked out very well on both the front and the back, and also the roof. I could approve I think the mechanicals in the, because they're only viewed against, the wall of a taller building, but I also could go along with commissioners who would like to see them reduced somewhat or working with the staff. But I think in general, everything is very provable from my point of view.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I think we have enough to approve this with the condition that they work with the staff to minimize the visibility of the rooftop mechanical units. And I know Commissioner Goldblum, you had other specific concerns about the fenestration. I think because they do still fall within the lines of the floor levels, I do think they are kind of an interesting abstraction of the context with still using the hierarchy and allowing the steel plate to actually stand out. I think if it were too regular, I would worry that it would just look like windows punched through it and not intended. So Commissioner Ginsburg, I'm not sure, are you comfortable with it? Okay.
With regards to LPC 23-11611, 829 Greenwich Street, Greenwich Village Historic District. One 2000 feet. Do I need to start again or we go? Okay. I recommend approval finding that the work at the front and rear facade is warranted by deteriorating conditions due to poor detailing and excessive odor infiltration. That in addressing those deteriorating conditions, opportunities exist to improve the performance of the exterior envelope and habitability related to insufficient light and air. That the replacement of the non-efficient steel frame glazing flanking the sides of the curtain steel panels with new aluminum and glass curtain wall systems will maintain the building's essential composition of a monolithic steel panel floating in front of a simple curtain wall. That the creation of additional windows opening in the front facade will allow the building to comply with current building code requirements for light and air while maintaining the legibility of the previous approved design intent. That the new regularly placed punched openings will be contained within the boundaries of the curtain steel panels, and size and shape of the openings echo the proportions of the panels, resulting in an ad hoc yet harmonious composition. That moving the deeply recessed entrance infill outward while still maintaining a substantial recess will retain the sense of depth and shadow of the front facade and will not interfere with the layered composition of curtain steel panels, glazing and infill of the upper floors. If the material and design of the new entrance infill will harmonize with the building's overall design as modified. That the work on the roof will only be seen from a limited view looking northward on Greenwich Street in the context of the secondary facade. That the new rooftop structure featuring light-colored stucco-clad bulkhead and metal canopy with solar panels and mechanical enclosure and a small greenhouse enclosure will be in keeping with the material and finishes of the utilitarian rooftop structures added to the roof of the buildings in the historic district. That the work on the roof facade will not be visible from any public thoroughfare, and that replacing the glass curtain wall at the roof facade with stucco wall with punch window openings and projecting bays will reflect the scale of openings and general fenestration patterns at rear facades of buildings of this size within the block. However, I recommend working with staff to minimize the rooftop mechanical equipment to reduce its visibility.
And Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that motion?
So second.
Thank you. And Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Bland, Commissioner Chapin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen, Commissioner Ginsburg, Commissioner Berglund, no. Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 7 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion passes.
All right, so that's approved, and please continue to work with the staff. And we'll move to the next item.
All right, we'll now move to public meeting item number 2, LPC 24-05321. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, block 448, lot 9, 50 East 7th Street in the East Village, Lower East Side Historic District. This was a Romanesque revival style church Sunday school building designed by Samuel Barrage Reed and built in 1891 to 92. The application is to install mechanical equipment on the roof, replace windows, and install cladding. This was read into the record last week's public hearing, January 23rd, 2024, but was not presented at that time. So we'll be seeing it for the first time today. The applicants will present after we open the hearing.
All right, and Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bland, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the hearing is open and you may begin.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Reverend Dr. Jackie Lewis. It's good to see you again. I'm the Senior Minister of the Greenwich Church at 50 East 7th Street. My architect colleague, Craig Tillman of CTA Architects, is here today to present to you new plans that we have for bringing back to our building, about which we are thrilled and excited. It has been 3 years and a month or so since the fire destroyed our sacred space. We have been guests at various congregations around the city, most recently East End Temple. Our colleague Josh Stanton is making a niche climb, our Jewish friends will say, for us there while we rebuild. I'm really excited that our Fair Church Collegiate system gave us a thumbs up to rebuild. I think you will recall that we struggled with them to get permission to rebuild. It was certainly a more costly option than moving to another facility, for example. But we found a way to leverage our insurance money, also our fundraising, so that we can do this project in 2 phases. The first phase is to take the 5-story townhouse that's at 50 East 7th Street and the middle building, the interbuilding, which was a 2-story social hall, we called it. If you've been in with the big Tiffany dome, we're going to turn that 5-story townhouse and the 2-story social hall into program space with temporary gathering worship space. The top 3 floors of the townhouse look almost like we left in a hurry. It was shockingly not damaged, dusty, some military, and we did that. The bottom floors of that townhouse were quite devastated from the water that we used to put out the fire. So that's going to be a gut renovation. And the 2-story townhouse, the 2-story social hall is quite a mess. So we've got that. We build a 2-story temporary worship room gathering space that will be for us and our neighbors, a place for worship on Sundays, a place for concerts, town hall meetings, classes, convenings, conferences for the whole neighborhood. And when I walk by the site now, I bump into neighbors saying, when are we back? When can we get our meeting back? When can we get our dance class back? So the 5-story building will once again be a townhouse, a center, a community center for all of us to use. But what we need to do in order to get back into the building, we're very aggressive about a schedule to get back in by Advent, if you will, Christmas time next this 2024, December 2024. That means our architects are stressed, and that means our planning is intense. That we are hoping for your approval for the work that we need to do on the roof, so we can actually have HVAC, heat, and systems that can work for us as we move back in. My introductory remarks end with this, that even these 3 years of being, let's say, placeless, our community continues to grow. 750 more members now. That's an interesting kind of a ministry to have. No place and lots of people, up to a community of 2,000 now. That is global. Members in Bendigo and Beijing and in 22 countries, 48 states. We're not clear about the 2 states. We're looking at that too. But what we need to know is how desperately we need to get back into a place that we can call home, so we can broadcast from there, so we can gather there, so we can touch home and meet each other there. So we're looking for your support, and I'll give you thanks.
Good morning. Are you controlling over there, or am I controlling here?
You're controlling the arrows and mouse. Click on the screen.
So I'm here this morning with Reverend Jackie, Nikki Burns, and Joe Clayton from the church, Brady Mello from my office. And we're really talking about the building exterior work that we're proposing to you. This is the church as looking from the northwest corner of 2nd Avenue and 7th Street. Unfortunately, the church is now gone. This is what it looks like now. And what we're talking about is the social hall in the rear, which is covered with metal siding right now. The reason it's covered with metal siding is the old church was open into there, so they had to protect the opening from the weather after the fire. The building is on 7th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenues. It is on the south side of the street in the East Village Historic District. The building is on a T-shaped lot. So does the cursor? Yes. Okay. So we're talking about the social hall, which is right here. That's a raised monitor with a skylight on top. And then Reverend Jackie was referring to the 5-story building, which is here accessed off of East 7th Street.
This is a series of photos taken by James here. Thank you, James, for giving us those. These are before the fire. These are the roof of the third floor roof above the social hall. You can see on the lower right-hand side, this is the monitor and the skylight that Reverend Jackie was just mentioning right here. And there was clear story windows all the way around that have been demolished. And then on the lower left-hand side here, this is the south-facing elevation of that monitor. You see these two rooftop units that have been damaged by the fire and will be removed. You can see the back of the church right here. I wish I could use this thing. But that is now gone.
There's a pointer right on the side. Okay.
Better. There we go. Feel like I'm alive again. This is the condition now. It's heartbreaking to go in. I think Reverend Jackie sort of mentioned what it looks like inside. There's a series of sort of relatively minor work that we are doing on the roof. We'll be replacing the skylight, which is over the stair. We'll be replacing the roof. We'll be adding sound attenuation to these two units that are existing. But this is the social hall now. You can see the firemen broke the skylight up here. They smashed out all the windows. A lot of the detail is gone, unfortunately. And this is the back side of the temporary wall that faces west, which we looked at from the outside, which is covered with metal siding. The intention here is to, fortunately, the two rings, the outer ring and the innermost ring, are mostly intact, so we will stabilize them in place until we do the big renovation for the new build for the new church, at which point we hope we can restore it in full, and we'll be replacing the glass in all of the openings in the monitor. This is a series of photographs looking at the fifth floor roof where we intend to place our new rooftop unit, which is the biggest subject that we're going to talk about today. So right here are the two rooftop units that were on the third floor roof that we showed you a photograph about a minute or so ago. The church now has a vibrant online community. And so they stream all of their services. We have an acoustical consultant who has been assisting us in making sure that we have a quiet interior for our broadcasts and that we are more sensitive to our neighbors. So we are going to be removing these that were demolished by the fire, and we intend to put them up on the fifth floor roof. Again, a series of photographs after the fire in the existing condition. These are all the plywood sheets that are over the openings. The interior, again, covered with plywood. Some amazing flashing details for your entertainment. This is the monitor itself. It's covered with mastic. We intend to remove the mastic and the metal paneling that's there and replace it with new metal paneling. And this is the window opening, the typical openings in the clear story, which we will replace with insulated glass, very hefty, 1.25 inch, double laminated insulated glass to reduce sound transmission from the exterior to the interior. During the community board meeting, we were asked if we were doing anything to the north facade on 7th Street, so we added this slide just for information. We're basically doing nothing but restoring this. We're taking this doors off site to refinish them. There's a damaged piece here we'll cut out and put in a Dutchman. We'll be refinishing the existing brass hardware, but that's basically it on the main entrance, and this will now serve as the new entrance, or the main entrance to the church or worship space. So this is the proposal. This is the facade was just recently demolished, as you saw on the second slide. Again, a heartbreaking turn of events, but what we're talking about is this area here is the monitor with the clear story windows that we intend to replace. We will put a new skylight on the top above the stained glass and a new skylight over here. There'll be a new railing. And this is the rooftop unit that we're talking about that replaces the two units that are on the third floor. So there will be a large unit here below the height of the existing. There will be two large ducts, one supply and one return. We are putting large sound attenuation on them to reduce the sound transmission both in the neighborhood and into the space. And then there's a kitchen exhaust duct running up here on the north side of that elevation. This is what it looks like directly facing east from Second Avenue. I don't know if we need to go through this again, but I'm happy to do so. Nuclear storeroom windows. This metal siding will remain in place. This metal siding will be replaced to match the existing painted metal. 3 ducts and the RTU on the roof. We'll have to do some minor interventions in the existing railing there on the 5th floor. This is a roof plan that shows the 3rd floor roof, and the intention is to replace this roof. These 6 units are existing, and that skylight will be replaced. And this is a section of the building. This will be our new worship space with a mezzanine and these new clear story windows. And then this is the location of the RTU, the rooftop unit. And you can see our lovely ductwork running up the west side of the building. James had asked us to give you heights. The new unit is approximately 10'9" above the existing 5th floor roof. And it is less than is lower than the existing elevated bulkhead that exists right here. And it is much less than the maximum height of 110 feet in an R8 district where we are. Oops, I'm sorry. This is a contextual photo. This is in our backyard looking from our 5th floor roof here. There are similar units and lovely ductwork in the backyard. And this is what the unit will look like in the color. Carolyn had asked us to show you what the color was. It's a painted gray metal, beautiful box. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. All right. Do we have any questions, commissioners? Yes, Vice Chair Bland.
Maybe I missed it. The phase 2 of this is to rebuild on the site of the original church. Okay.
Yes.
And if that's true, it's possible that all of this that we now see will become visible from the public way.
Yeah, thank you. We'll right back on the site, like something around the same height. You know, we would have seen it before, and we expect to build back better, and you won't see it again. Thank you.
I can add to that. Sorry. So there is this is the building. This building also burned down in the corner. So obviously this is a development lot, and so this will probably be rebuilt, and then obviously the church will be rebuilt. So you're absolutely correct. This will all be in. Thanks.
Yes, Commissioner Chen.
Just drawings again, so many files.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner. The fire marshal's report says that the fire started in the building to the north of us, but there will be some asbestos remediation, perhaps too much inventory coming out of the outlet, and that's what the electrical fire started the fire. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's see if we have any public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it over to Gregory Collett to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. If you'd like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button now, and I will promote you to panelist. I will note that there are no hands raised in the meeting. So I will state for the record that Manhattan Community Board 3 recommends conditional approval, requesting the applicant modify the proposal by replacing the cellar street windows with appropriate wood sash wooden framed windows. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Thank you. So would you like to address the community board's comment about the windows and the clear story?
Yeah, one of the commissioners, one of the members of the community board said that there was that sashes were actually mentioned in the report, which they're not. So we would
rather not put a sash back. We just put an insulated glass unit in, and then we'll insulate the outside. So effectively, the pier will remain the same width without a sash.
And the brightness of them in that rendering, is that just for clarity, or what is the finish?
Yes, that's just that. That's that's just for clarity.
Right, so they'll be read as dark like everything else.
Yes.
All right, commissioners, any other final? Yes, Commissioner Chu?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, the section of the building where this space below will be a gathering space under this clear story pop up. How does that relate to the original church section in the main space? And the portion that was burned down would be replaced. Would this room be a part of a large room or a separate room behind it? This is just to understand the building section. So.
Thank you. Our dream is a little trouble for calling that temporary, but it is temporary, right?
Yeah, right.
So the with the sanctuary and that social hall, and have two doors that let you in. So if we the sanctuary, we would take this wall down, and those two would be one big footprint.
Okay.
So we get a 650 seat space for you to come and enjoy us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. All right, commissioners, any other questions? All right, let's move to close the hearing. Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to close the hearing? So moved. Thank you. Commissioner Chapin, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion, and I want to thank you for your continued work and your ambitious goals here, and we wish you the best on that. So in the meantime, we're looking at this interim solution to create this gathering hall, which includes repair to areas damaged by the fire, including replacing the metal panel at the top, the windows, the clear story windows, and then installing the rooftop HVAC unit on the upper level, which is still lower than the sort of partial top floor of that building and its elevator bulkhead, and will be obscured or blocked from view once new construction happens on both this and the corner sites. So Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this one?
Thank you. I think that there's nothing at all about this proposal that's inappropriate. I think it's great that the church is moving forward with this two-phase solution, and I wish them all the best on achieving their goals. It is a real sad day here to when we authorized the removal of that. It was not the building, but it was made clear to us that that was the only choice, and it's a bummer. But I look forward to seeing phase two, and I wish them Godspeed.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
I totally agree. And having many years ago worked on the building directly to the south, it was a beautiful structure. It's so sad to see it gone, but I'm glad that the church is surviving in the building.
Commissioner Chen.
Likewise, yeah, really to see the second phase and gospel this month.
Vice Chair Bland.
This is an unusual situation where we're being asked to approve as appropriate something that was never seen before, and in the future will never be seen again. My republic, but nonetheless, it will be seen for a while. Let's hope a short while, and therefore we're seeing here now as I think completely as presented.
Commissioner Chu.
I would agree with my fellow commissioners. I think this is totally appropriate, and the mechanical relocation makes sense to me. The acoustic isolation that you're lagging on the decks and everything seems correct.
Commissioner Master.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think this is completely appropriate. And I just think it's wonderful to see a church that's thriving the way that you are.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Very appropriate and good luck.
And Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I agree with other commissioners, completely appropriate. And I guess we don't need to go into detail in this case, so I just support the general situation.
Okay, all right. So I think we're all in agreement and we have a consensus to approve. So Commissioner Goldblum, would you make the motion?
Regarding 50 East 7th Street, the East Village, the proposed historic district, the application is to install mechanical equipment on the roof, replace windows, and install cladding. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the East Village Lower East Side Historic District. I further note that the connecting church at 112 2nd Avenue and the neighboring building at 114 2nd Avenue suffered a devastating fire on December 5, 2020, which destroyed the corner building and significant portions of the church building. That emergency repair work was done to stabilize the church and this Sunday school building, but the remaining church facade was recently demolished under a COA. I recommend approval, finding that the proposed work will not eliminate or damage any significant architectural or historic features of the proposed work, will be located at rooftop locations prior to the 2020 fire that were not visible at that time and will not be visible once the buildings fill the empty lots on 2nd Avenue. The large mechanical unit and ductwork on the roof will not be seen over the front facade, and its visibility through open lots will be seen in context of utilitarian rear yard accretions. The replacement of the temporary metal cladding that was installed on the emergency basis will result in a more finished appearance. And the replacement of the skylight will lead to the long-term preservation of the building dome below. That the change in operation from the historic double hung to the new fixed clear story windows will not call undue attention to itself, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural or historic character of the building or the East Village Lower East Side Historic District.
Right, and Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that motion?
Second.
Clark?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Aye. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chung. Aye. Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Wishing you the best. Thank you. All right, we'll move to the next item.
Next item is public meeting item number 3, LPC 23-11565. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of the Bronx, block 5822, lot 2730. 4671 Grosvenor Avenue, aka 4663 Grosvenor Avenue in the Fieldstone Historic District. This is a vacant site featuring a fieldstone retaining wall. The application is to construct a new building. This was last presented at the public hearing on November 28th, 2023, and no action was taken at that time. I believe the staff will do a brief introduction before turning it over to the applicant, which time we'll need to open the proceedings.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michelle Claren, Preservation Staff. This item was last presented at the public hearing and public meeting of November 28th, 2023. The proposal is to construct a new building on a vacant lot containing a fieldstone retaining wall. The proposal as presented on November 28th, shown on the left, is for a building fronting on Grosvenor Avenue with the narrower facade facing the road due to site constraints, featuring fieldstone retaining walls and cladding, two-tone cementitious cladding, and multi-light casement windows. A majority of commissioners present expressed support for the massing for front-facing garage and siding of the proposed house, as well as the craftsman-inspired style. However, some commissioners present expressed concerns about certain aspects of the design, including the details of the new stone retaining walls and steps and metal railings, the two-tone finish of the siding, the configurations of the windows, and the proportions of the entrance porch. Staff would like to note that the stonework work was not accurately depicted in the rendering shown in the initial presentation on the left. The existing wall is dry laid, and it is the intent of the applicant to closely match its appearance with all new stonework, not to introduce a bright white mortar as shown on the left. The applicant has returned to present a revised proposal once we've opened the proceedings.
Thank you. And Commissioner Master, would you make a motion to open the proceedings? So moved. Thank you. Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Hal Grosvenor. It's my firm, and I'm the applicant of this new home. First, I'd like to thank all the commissioners for their comments last time. It's very much appreciative as a small architecture firm to receive critiques from such a esteemed group. What we did, what I'm going to just basically outline is the differences between the first presentation based on the comments. One of the items was the window alignments, which was predominantly on the south side of the house, which is on the left. We aligned and made the windows more similar in size on all the facades. Now, we also included, instead of having the horizontal buttons, we made a 2/2 window pattern, which is more in keeping with the style of the home. We also simplified the color palette it's a color that's James Harden makes. It's a heritage color that we've selected, and it's a color that's actually applied at the manufacturing plant to the cladding. So it's almost an ever type color. So it should stay this way for many years. On the front facade, we eliminated the transit window that was in the living room, and we grouped them slightly closer together to keep more in style with a derivative of Craftsman, the four square house. We tapered the column posts on the porch, and we added a shed dormer to the roof. Additionally, regarding the stone walls, some of the commissioners, and rightly so, did not approve of the sloped capping. So we made it more stepped on the capping of the stone wall, especially on the left side of the driveway where it's most visible. Additionally, there were comments about the handrails, so we eliminated all the balustrades on the step portions and just made the railings run diagonally in line with the slope of the stairs, slightly on the inside of the walls. As Michelle stated, we found a better texture that more closely delineated the existing stone, and the new mortar will be more in line with the same color as the loose laid stone that's already on the front of the house. Or the existing vacant lot. I think basically that's it. We have the same color windows as before, the bronze, the copper gutters. If you have any questions.
All right. Do we have questions, commissioners? All right. I have a couple of questions. The windows, I know you're showing 2/2 now, which is the direction that we asked you to go. I just wanted to confirm they're double hung or.
No, these are casements. It's a lot of 2/2.
Okay.
And they're true divided light windows.
Okay. And what is the material of the facade cladding?
The facade cladding is a hardy plank. It's a textured cement clapboard. It has the same texture as a wood.
So it's horizontal?
Yes.
Clapboards. Okay,
Yes.
It's hard to tell in the rendering. And I know there were some questions about the eaves last time. How do you have a section that shows the eaves, the overhang, and how deep it is?
Yes. One way advance. Arrow keys? No. No.
No, it's moving. It's just a little delay on the screen.
Okay. No. As you can see, the alignment of the windows on this elevation sheet. This, if you look on the left, you can see the overhang. It's approximately 12 inches plus 4 inches for the gutter. It's 16 to 17 inches, and it's a copper gutter that goes around.
Okay,
I think we might have a little better detail maybe on the next, you can see the gutter detail and you can see the siding color better here in the windows and
this is helpful. Okay, thank you. All right, commissioners, no other final questions? Okay, Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah. I just had a question. You referred a couple of references were made to existing stone. So as I understand it, you're using the gray toned stone, but what do you mean by existing?
in along Grosvenor Avenue, the stone wall in the picture on the lower right there's an existing retaining wall that separates the height of the sidewalk from the present height grade.
Okay. I understand. So that's why you decided to go with the gray tone and change the color of the roofing to a gray to go with that. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, any other questions? Okay, and I'll just note that we also did receive one letter, which was shared with the commissioners in advance of today's public meeting, recommending denial of the revised proposal. All right, so commissioners, if there.
Can I just ask a question? What is the material of the garage door? It says cedar. Is that in fact cedar wood or?
Yeah, that's a real wood. Yeah.
Cedar. Okay.
All right. Okay, so if there are no other questions, then we'll move to our discussion. And so the last time that we saw this proposal, as Michelle stated, we supported the presence of the new building on this lot, its scale, its massing, and even its style, the approach it was taking for its style, but did ask that the applicant simplify the materials. I think some people specifically said one color, one tone, one color, and ask them to look at different window configuration and fenestration pattern that would not have the horizontal mullions, but have something more like a multi-light window. And we also asked them to develop some of their details at the elements that we were reviewing, including the eaves, porch, the rails. And finally, I think many commissioners commented on the coping at the stairs and driveway and asked that that be stepped rather than sloped. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chu, would you like to start this one?
Sure. I think that the revisions are positive. I think the stonework is a big improvement at the front of the building. I do think that the color scheme is simpler. The garage will appear different than the rest of this hardy board siding. In the rendering, it appears similar, but the cedar will weather and look different. I do think that the applicant needs to work a little with staff on the final details of some of the elements and finishes so that they feel like they work together. The windows look a little cartoonish in the rendering, so it's hard for us to tell the actual operation casement. Are they true divided lights or not? They look very small, but the window itself looks very large. So I just want to make sure that it's worked out properly and that we're looking at the right image here. I would say the same goes with the eaves and the gutter detail to the roof, which is that asphalt shingle on top. In general, I think this is appropriate, but I do want the applicant to work with staff on refining the details and final color pick.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Master.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Chu's comments. I think it's a big improvement, in particular the stonework. I also like the added dormer windows, but I agree that they should work with the staff to finalize the details.
Commissioner Jefferson.
What I see here is that the voice became dominant, the building became subordinate compared to what was there before. And this is an exuberant base. I mean, it's just powerful and exuberant. And the building becomes subordinate, and the dormer on the top is it's smaller. I think it's appropriate. I that's my comments. I think the technical issues of the windows, working with staff, you could correct that.
And it may be that as they work with the staff to develop all of those details on the windows and the eaves, it might give the building a little bit more character. All right, Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, I think in general, it's very much very appropriate. I think that the changes to the windows, the door, the color palette, the addition of the dormer all work very nicely. The use of the gray stone is fine as an alternative. Actually, to me, I like the slope along the driveway. I think the stepped stonework on the driveway is rather distracting, and then the additional stepping on the next to the fence leading up to the door. I think just the slope would actually be better and less calling attention to itself. But if others find that fine, I can approve it as presented with them working with the staff on any details.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
My concerns last time had to do with the stonework, which is vastly improved with the mortar color and the stepping and the wall. And so I find this approvable. I need to work with staff on some details. The issue that Commissioner Chu raised about the difference in the door color versus the siding, depending on how it's stained or painted, the door could match.
Okay, Commissioner Chen?
We worked on most of the comments, and I think Commissioner Jefferson and Commissioner Chip raised an issue, which is I also noticed the difference between last time and this time, or the stepping down. So that's really drawing undue attention to itself, but I do look to the majority.
Vice Chair Brand?
I think generally this is approvable, but I think working with staff is going to be good to get all the details right. My eye tells me that the building is too small. It's just insignificant. It should somehow be larger. And if it were up to me, I like bricks and glass houses and everything. I would not have removed the story, but I'm certainly not going to separate that from approving it the way it is.
And Commissioner Lutfi?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the comments, and it's definitely an improved project. I also agree that it's important for the applicant to work with staff. And the two issues that have been raised, the stepping, I think it has something to do with the way it finishes at the top of each of the steps, step downs at the driveway. So if they work with staff on the details concerning that, I also happen to agree that they should work with staff on the size of the dormer.
Okay, all right, so I think we can make a motion today to approve this with recommendations that they continue to work with the staff as they develop the details for the windows, the eaves, the railing, the resolution of the stepping on the stone wall, gutters, and that they work with staff on the size of the dormer and final work with the staff on a final color approval. Commissioner, would you make that motion?
Sure. Okay, in the case of LPC 23-11-565 4671 Grosvenor Avenue, aka 4663 Grosvenor Avenue, Fieldston Historic District. Vacant site featuring a fieldstone retaining wall. Application here is to construct a new building. We recommend approval. I'd also note that 4671 Grosvenor Avenue is a vacant lot with trees and a dry road stone retaining wall adjacent to the sidewalk. We note that the Fieldstone Historic District is largely intact example of a romantic planned suburb characterized by an eclectic variety of residential styles utilizing traditional materials, including clapboard brick, stucco, and fieldstone. Further note that the house lots historically varied in size and that the original designers sited the house on their lots to take advantage of the varied and picturesque topography of the area. We note that in 1938, the NYC City Planning Commission created a special G zone for Fieldstone to restrict building to single-family residences, and that in 1974, CPC established the Special Natural Area District to guide development to preserve significant natural features by requiring CPC review of site alterations and new development. Again, I recommend approval with modifications, finding that historically houses were built on lots of varying sizes and varying setbacks and side yard sizes. Therefore, the footprint of the new residential building relative to the size of the lot and side yards will be keeping with lot coverage and placement of houses on similar size lots found throughout the historic district. That the organization of the plan featuring a narrow main entrance facade and orientation of the main mass of the building perpendicular to the street will be in keeping with the orientation of other buildings in the district situated on narrow lots or on lots where the topography dictates the footprint of the building. That there is precedent for garages which directly front the street on buildings from various periods within the historic district. Therefore, the presence of the garage on the main entrance facade will not call undue attention to itself. That the height of the new house will be in keeping with the height of the predominantly 2 and 2.5 story suburban type houses, which characterize the district and the neighboring houses on the block. That the treatment of the main entrance facade featuring a hipped roof and projecting entrance bay and a palette of natural finishes will relate to other craftsman style houses in the district in a contemporary way. That the fenestration pattern of punch openings is typical of buildings throughout the historic district. That the proposed primary door assembly featuring a paneled door and multi-light side lights and transom and casement windows featuring a 4-light configuration will recall entrances and fenestration of freestanding houses of various styles in this district. That the materials palette featuring painted wood garage door, porch, piers, and trim, cement board siding, and asphalt shingle roof will be in keeping with materials and finishes found at historic and contemporary buildings throughout the historic district. That the proposed fieldstone retaining wall steps and cladding at the driveway, walkway, and basement level will harmonize with the existing wall adjacent to the sidewalk and will be in keeping with the use of natural materials commonly found in the historic district. And that the proposed black finished metal railings at the retaining wall and steps will be simple in design and typical of placement. However, we find that the details of features such as eaves, gutters, window trim, need further development with staff, as well as the dormer and the clipping of the fieldstone bases of the driveway and steps leading up to the house.
Thank you. And Commissioner Master, would you second that motion?
Second.
And Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll,
Aye.
Commissioner Brand. Aye. Commissioner Chopin,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Lutfi. Aye. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 9 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
Thank you. It's approved, and please continue to work with the staff on all of those details. Thank you. Nice to see you too. Take care.
All right, we'll now move to our public hearing agenda, starting with public hearing item number 1, LPC 24-02285. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 251, Lot 46, 39 Grace Court in the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. This is a vacant lot with an historic fence, and the application is to remove the fence and construct a new building.
Hi, good morning, commissioners. My name is Jackie P. Vallon. I'm a preservation consultant on this project. I'm here today with Lyle Carroll of Lyle Sheridan Carroll Architects, as well as the property owner, Nicole Ekstrom. The property is, the property is 39 Grace Court, a proposal to build a new house on a vacant lot that was formerly the rear yard of 36 Remsen Street. And before we begin the presentation, the owner, Nicole, would like to say a few words to you.
Thank you, Jackie. My name is Nicole Ekstrom, and my husband, Carlos, and I own 39 Grace Court. We currently live and work in Brooklyn Heights, and we have two small girls. So this house that we're presenting today will be our family home. We love the neighborhood, and we recognize, what a great privilege it is to be able to build something new in Brooklyn Heights. I am an FIT design graduate and have, an utmost respect for architecture and design. And, part of the reason that we moved to Brooklyn Heights is because of its charm, and the houses in the district. Just a little bit of family history. You probably can't tell from my accent, but my grandfather was actually an engineer and worked for the New York City Parks Department. He worked at the Arsenal in Central Park for many years. And I'm very proud to continue his legacy of bringing design and innovation to New York. We've also, as part of our community engagement, we've spoken to a number of friends, residents of the district, and also associations within the area. And we've received a lot of feedback, which we've incorporated into our design. And we feel we've created a even better design because of their feedback. And we feel that it is, well proportioned. We feel it's harmonious with the neighborhood, and we're excited to be able to present it to you today. And we look forward to more feedback. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
Thanks. Hi, Jackie P. Vallon again. Here is the site's location in the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. As you can see in the partial block plan in the bottom right corner, there are a number of rear yards of houses on Remsen Street that extend to Grace Court. Here in this aerial view, you can see the project location on the north side of Grace Court, which is a single block that extends west from Hicks Street to the bluff overlooking the BQE. The houses on Remsen on the north side of the block date to the mid and late 19th century. And some of these houses have rear yards behind them that extend to Grace Court. The lot of 36 Remsen Street was recently subdivided so that construction on 39 Grace Court is as of right. Here's a view looking at the rear yards of 58 to 46 Remsen, looking west from Hicks Street. You'll note that there's an open picket iron fence that extends uniformly along Hicks and Grace Court at the perimeter of these rear yards. We'll show detailed photos of that fence later in the presentation. This fence, which may date to the late 19th century, affords a view into these private rear yards of some of these houses on Remsen Street. It's interesting to note that the owners of the house on the corner of Hicks and Remsen, which you see in the foreground, had a brick wall constructed behind it sometime in the early 20th century, obstructing the view into the backyards from Hicks. Here's a view walking to mid-block on Grace Court, walking west, where we meet the mid-century apartment building at 45 Grace Court. And here's the view walking further west, from pretty much standing in front of 45 Grace Court. The proposed building location is directly adjacent to the west side of the building in the foreground. Here's the view as one continues walking west, looking at the rear yards of 30 and 32 Remsen Street that are visible from mid-block, and the late 19th century houses and early 20th century apartment building that stands to the west. Here's the view of the south side of Grace Court, opposite our proposed building location.
And here are the streetscapes of the north and south side of the street, which with the project location highlighted on the north side. As you can see, the diversity in scale and building types on the block, more so on the south side of the street, which is anchored at Hicks Street by the Grace Church, the late 19th century houses at mid-block, and the large 1916 apartment houses at 2 Grace Court at the end of the street. On this portion of the Pierpont Estate map from 1849, you'll see Upjohn's Grace Church was the first building on the street, which gave it its name. On this 1884 Sanborn map, you see the houses facing Remsen have been built, as have the houses that currently stand on both sides of Grace Court, and the grand estates of the Packer and Prentice mansions that were formerly at the west end of the street. Incidentally, the roof of a wood structure can be seen at the backyard of 36 Remsen Street, the present location of 39 Grace Court. In this 1903 Belcher map, we see the brick wall appear that runs along this side yard of 58 Remsen, set behind the iron picket fence and blocking the view from Hicks Street. Here's the proposed block plan, where you can see the diversity of building heights and the footprint of the proposed building. The architects, of course, looked to the district for inspiration and precedent in their design for the new house. The proposed house is designed in Greek Revival style. This map and the list next to it highlights most, if not all, of the locations of Greek Revival style houses in the district. Here are photos of 3 Greek Revival style houses that served as design inspiration, with their simple brick facades, brownstone bases and details, and simple dentil cornices. The architects also looked at decorative elements that may be added to the house and that may have been added to houses in the district over time, and identified oil windows as an element that they wanted to incorporate. There are 4 houses with oil windows on Grace Court. And we, of course, looked at the design of new buildings approved in the district in recent years, which likewise have more simply detailed brick facades that are harmonious with the district. And with that, I would like to introduce the architect, Mal Carroll, of Mal Sheridan Carroll Architects, to take you through the design.
Good morning, my name is Mal Carroll, Mal Sheridan Carroll Architects. Just to give a review of the project we're proposing, this is a 3-bedroom family home on 3 floors over a cellar. It's roughly 2,200 square feet, plus the cellar. And as Nicole mentioned, this is for a young family who live and work in the district. Some of the broader goals of the project, one thing, it's a family home, but also we wanted to build this in keeping with the rich architectural context of the neighborhood. We began our design with a more modern contextual approach, with more pared-back details, but keeping in mind proportions and fenestration within the context. We're developing this design and speaking with the BHA and other groups, we decided to lean more directly towards a Greek Revival style, which, as Jackie pointed out, there are many examples of in the district. We saw that on Grace Court, there's a great variety of styles, including Greek Revival, including Gothic Revival, Tudor Revival, and mid-century modern and Italianate. We thought that bringing the Greek Revival into this mix, and it's as it is something in the single district, was appropriate. Another important here is that this is intended to be a passive house building. This is something we specialize in, and something our clients are very passionate about. So it will be a low energy consuming, low carbon footprint building on all electric systems. So going more into specifics, starting here on the right side of this page, we look at details of the wall construction showing high insulation values in the wall. Additionally, the windows we're proposing are a simulated double hung. They're passive house rated, and by simulated double hung, I mean they appear as double hung windows, but in fact function as highly airtight sealed casement windows with a lower portion opening. Just going forward, The side wall of the proposed building is clearly visible down Grace Court. So we thought carefully about the materials and detailing here, wrapping the proposed red brick around the side and around the rear as well, and thought quite a bit about the detailing of the cedar rear yard fence and the cedar pergola and screen on the upper setback terrace level. The material palette here is taken, inspired by the district and the simple Greek revival palette of bluestone paving in the area, the rear yard and the upper terrace. The cedar wood in the rear yard fence, which will turn gray over time. Brownstone stucco and cast stone details, painted ironwork, red brick and brass detailing. This image here, looking at the proposed elevation next to 45 Grace Court here, the one little, and further down the street of the existing row houses and additional apartment little, comparing in proportion in terms of overall scale and demonstration, which we believe is in keeping with the existing buildings here. Just a closer elevation of its neighbor, most direct neighbor. The street wall, of course, is co-planar with this building and with the houses further down the street. That's the rear elevation. So the section shows the 3 floors over the cellar, with the rear garden in the back, the upper terrace with the pergola, and the sideline. Shows there is a mechanical enclosure on the roof, which is not visible from the street. We'll see in later perspectives that it's also not visible from down Grace Court. The windows, as I mentioned, are passive house rated, similar to double hung 2/2, with a cast brownstone lintel and sills. The oriel window, again, taking inspiration from nearby buildings and taking their simple detailing here. The entryway with a simple cast stone lintel, a brownstone stucco stoop, a double door with a transom window above, and the railing, which we'll talk about later, but here along the stoop is designed to mimic the existing railing along the street at Grace Court. This is the lintel detail. Sorry, the cornice detail. So the rear yard fence, which I mentioned, is in cedar. The lower part is proposed to be in a tighter butt joint, and then the upper portion spaced out to create a more open and light appearance. This is showing the rendered in the streetscape. Again, looking at the proportions of the other houses. Further renderings from various points on the street. And these aerial shots show the rear yard, the upper terrace with the pergola and the enclosure on the roof with solar panels also up there, which are designed to cover a large portion of the energy use of the building. This is looking at the proposed plot plan. So, we're proposing some work to the sidewalk and to the tree bed curbs, and just a few points on the fence and railing here. On the east side, where our building would adjoin the apartment building, there's an existing 7 or 8 foot fence there, which we think was installed when that building was built, which would remain. There are 2 posts from the older fence on either side of this lot, which would remain. And on the west side, next to our stoop, we would propose using a part of the removed railing to return back to our building. These are photos of that existing fence along Grace Court. It needs some maintenance, but it is in decent condition. And here we look at how we could reuse some portions of the existing fence. The upper drawings show the existing conditions, and the lower drawings show the proposed. So again, keeping those posts at either end and using the fence, but cutting it down to a more appropriate height for an areaway fence. And keeping the stone curb also acceptable. We have the stoop and the stairs down to the areaway. And again, that railing up the stairs is designed to be in keeping with the design of the fence. Some more details just showing that return of the fence to the building on the west side, and images of the fence up there in the top right on the east side. And then further renderings here showing proposed front and rear. Again, we're thinking of the detailing of any materials wrapping around both sides. We're proposing larger openings on the rear facade, which is, we think, in keeping with rear facades in the district. Particularly on the garden level, and the openings are considerate of the uses of the spaces behind. And again, just a rendering showing the building in context. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, commissioners, do we have questions? All right, I just wanted you to clarify where the lot is. So the two posts in the garden fence, those both posts are on your lot, correct?
They're on the lot line. Yes.
They're on the lot line,
Yeah.
and they're going to remain.
Yeah.
And then how far back does the lot go? What is the rear lot line, and where is that in the rear yards?
So this plot diagrams on the left, we're showing the sort of existing empty condition, and the proposed on the right here.
So the wood fence at the back of your garden is the lot line?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
What's the depth of that? I can't read it.
The depth from
Your lot, the new lot, because subdivided lot.
it's sorry, it's 15, almost 60 feet. It's 15 feet.
All right, and the building behind it would have a 30, you can't read it either, 30,
Yes, the current building 36 Remsen is overbuilt by 6 feet or 6.5 feet.
all right. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, we're going to move to public testimony. We may have more questions after that. Judy Stanton?
Reading testimony by Christopher Neville. Thank you for the opportunity to share this testimony. I have worked in historic preservation in New York City since the late 1980s, including as an instructor of both local graduate preservation programs. I live in Brooklyn Heights and serve on the Brooklyn Heights Association Landmarks Committee. Like the BHA committee, I do not support this proposal, and I fully concur with the committee's concerns. But in my testimony, I wanted to add some additional points of my own. The Brooklyn Heights Historic District is a nationally significant and singularly well-preserved historic urban landscape, one made up not only of its buildings, but also of the open space around, between and above them. And while the district is unique, it is not uniform. Chronologically, it is layered, and physically from block to block, it contains an array of microclimates. The Grace Court block and its gardens form one such microclimate, rich with its own distinct history, character, and exceptional sense of place. This proposal is a land grab, an attempt to monetize the added value of that hyper-local sense of place while erasing exactly the character-defining features that make the site historically significant as a public good and eroding the historical integrity of the immediate surroundings. The project's small scale and side street location belies larger relevance. Its deep flaws are problematic not only for the district, but also for preservation at large. In socioeconomic historic preservation, in socioeconomic terms, Brooklyn Heights is not a frontline community, but in terms of the challenges facing historic preservation, the neighborhood is still a highly contested space, as seen recently in the press. The flaws in both this proposal's premise and its approach highlight what is at stake. They are damaging for their immediate effects and as precedents to be cited in the future. At its core, this proposal is a demolition, not historic infill project on a vacant lot. It calls not just for some removal of a historic fence, but also for the erasure of an historic garden. The garden is a constituent part of a large historic whole, one that is publicly visible and a landmark designated open space. The extent and the impact of such a demolition as such must not be minimized. The fact that the open space in question is privately owned does not dilute its character or its contribution to the district. The pre-designation loss of 3 gardens for an apartment building in the middle of the road only emphasizes the fragility of the road's integrity, not to mention the benefits of subsequent LPC protection for the garden.
Julie, I'm sorry, 3 minutes are up. Could you please summarize your testimony?
I urge you to withhold approval of this proposal.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you. Jean-Young McDermott.
So, hi, my name is Julie McDermott. I've got a family of 4, my husband Sean, and my kids, Mary and Alex. We're the neighbors of Nicole and Carlos. Professionally, I'm an art director with 15 years of experience in the museum exhibition design industry. I've had the privilege of working on many high-profile museum projects, collaborating with many architects and curators to create immersive experience for visitors. I'm here to show our support for Carlos and Nicole to plan to build a new home in 39 Grace Court in Brooklyn Heights. We've been living in Brooklyn Heights since 2020 and have known Nicole and Carlos for about 3 years socially. Carlos and Nicole have a real passion for real estate. We've seen how their family business has grown through the renovation of historical brownstones. So it's really exciting to see them taking on these personal projects to build on their own family home in Brooklyn Heights. They've done a ton of research into the different architectural styles of the neighborhood, and their choice of the Greek Revival style for their proposed design will fit in perfectly in the block. Since they have a lot of experience in construction, they know the importance of completing the project quickly and minimizing any disruption in the neighborhood. We're confident that the project at 39 Grace Court will be no difference, so they can start enjoying their new home in the neighborhood. We can't wait to see their townhouse on Grace Court come to life, just like we'd love to see their family grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Therese D'Ambrosio.
Hi there. Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Teresa D'Ambrosio. I live on Grace Court, and I'm here to express my deep concern regarding the proposed construction over the garden at 39 Grace Court and the related destruction of the Grace Court garden fence. These gardens have been there since the Civil War. This is not a vacant lot. This is a beautiful historic garden that brings so much pleasure to those on the block. These back gardens of Grace Court hold immense historical significance, contributing to the charm and the heritage of the neighborhood and the quality of life, not only for the owners of that property, but for all of the residents. These are not just patches of land. These are vital components of the neighborhood's identity. Destroying these gardens sends a dangerous precedent, suggesting that the sanctity of these historic landscapes can be compromised, and once lost, they'll never be recovered. That would change the cultural tapestry of the neighborhood forever. Regarding the precedent, and meaning no disrespect, but the property is owned by a developer with no less than 15 other properties in the neighborhood for sale. They also own the adjacent lot at 37 Grace Court, which can only lead us to conclude that the intent is to continue to develop on these on these vacant gardens today. There's about 9 gardens that are from the backs of Remsen Court, and you just imagine that they would be sold and developed, leading to the destruction of all of these beautiful spaces and just years of disruption. I stand with the Brooklyn Heights Association, with Joanne Simon, Lincoln Wrestler, and other members of the community in requesting and respectfully urging the commission to protect the rich history and unique charm of Brooklyn Heights and rejecting any proposals to build over the garden at 39 Grace Court. Please ensure that future generations can continue to enjoy the cultural and historical significance of these beautiful green spaces. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Logan Burkham.
And it comes in districts, and they need to make sure the importance of maintaining the intent of these historic districts. Okay. I also like to note that building construction. I work for NYC managing the restoration of historic Carnegie branches, and coincidentally on the docket today, I'm the owner of some buildings there. This project in particular has piqued my interest for a few reasons. The group provided does add to the various styles of the neighborhood. The articulated entrance in particular is an important addition to communicating with the neighborhood. And finally, the desire noted to bring past the passive house standard helps to ensure minimal environmental impact. As previously noted, Carlos and Bill do have their work in the area that I haven't seen. However, they always work to restore historic details and ensure the buildings are in harmonious with the neighborhood. Their reputation precedes them and the quality of their construction, while also complete on a very timely schedule for minimal disruption to the neighborhood. They do go above and beyond. I finally want to note, I am as a hard, so I appreciate the opportunity to speak, but I also believe in delicately progressing into the future. At a time of severe housing shortage, this unique opportunity to build new housing is vitally important, and I hope the commission agrees. Thank you.
Thank you. Thomas French.
Good morning. My name is Tom French. I'm a resident of Grace Court. And first, I'd like to thank the staff and the commissioners of the Landmark Preservation Commission. Business before the commission in the past. I highly respect the work of the commission. It is important. And I believe the community owes a debt of gratitude to the commission for what you do. I have enjoyed Grace Court Gardens, and indeed our community has for over 170 years. It is with that backdrop that I would fully defend the right of the applicant to propose construction as a matter of right on their property. However, I do believe they must do so in compliance with all city laws, including the rules of the LPC. As has been noted, this property recently was under common ownership of the developer. And I think the precedent that whatever decision the committee makes with respect to 39 Grace Court, we should be prepared to discuss in connection with the other 9 potential properties comprising the Grace Court Gardens. With that context, I'm speaking in opposition to the proposal for 2 reasons. One, process, and the other, substance. But both can be summarized with one word: rushed. The commission asked the community to speak on the proposal and with a deadline of written testimony by Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. Friday afternoon, in final preparation for my own written testimony, I went to the website, looked at the proposal being submitted by the applicants for one last check, submitted my application. To my surprise, at 9 o'clock last night, I realized that in fact there was a new proposal, an updated proposal, 53-page proposal before the commission and under consideration today. We need notable changes. One, for the credit of the applicants, for the first time, they've addressed the destruction of the Grace Court landmark protected fence. They make that purportedly existed in 1922 on 39 Grace Court. And finally, on pages 51 and 53, they make note of a proposed zoning and land use update for the application. The significance of any of those changes, the changes to the fence, look like we don't have a view of any of those issues. And I don't think anybody understands the significance of those changes. And I suspect there are a number of people in this room that today are unaware of the updated proposal. The proposal on the website today has a date of Monday, January 29th, 2024. For that reason alone, if you must make a decision today, I think the clear decision here is to give the community an opportunity to review the updated proposal. Secondly, if you want to make a decision on the substance of this, please take a look at, I'm sorry, was that my 11 comment? Yeah, 11 instead of pointing out that the substance does not match. The applicant's own map and updated proposal on page 14 shows that there are no group of others on Grace Court or anywhere within eyesight of Grace Court, and this is wholly incongruous with the properties on Grace Court. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Miller.
Hi, my name is Jenny Miller. I'm a resident of Grace Court. I want to thank the commission for working preserving and maintaining the architectural beauty of this great city. And thank you for allowing our voices to be heard. Brooklyn Heights is a cherished neighborhood for its residents and for people around the world. Part of its charm is the uniqueness of each block. Cobblestone Street development, the front porches on Columbia Place, the majesty of Columbia Heights, and the extended gardens along Grace Court. The Grace Court gardens and the wrought iron fence enclosing them date back over 170 years. The gardens create openness, greenness, and light. They exist for the benefit of the neighborhood, not just for the Remsen Street owners. Generations of owners on Remsen Street have respected and valued the beauty of the gardens and their positive impact on the community. It has been almost 60 years since lots were sold to build the apartment building at 45 Grace Court and the subsequent establishment of the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. All of the unique extended gardens have remained intact since the Historic District was established. Accepting this application for a developer to build a house destroys the gardens at 39 Grace Court and puts the other gardens at great risk. I urge the commission to view this proposal with deep consideration. In addition to opting to destroy the garden, the developers have not taken into account the unique architectural beauty of Grace Court. I'm not architecturally trained, I'm a New York City public school teacher, but I see that they have chosen to truncate the antique fence, which not only unifies the garden side of the street, but echoes the ironwork on the other side. Due to its mandated size, the replica Greek Revival style house does not emulate the architectural characteristics of the other beautiful houses on Grace Court, does not resemble any of them. This new house will be setting a precedent for the other 9 lots along the block, including those gardens directly across from Upjohn's beautiful Grace Church. If approved, you will be setting the precedent to allow other owners and developers to build similarly misguided buildings on this historic and unique garden block. I ask you to please decline this application. I also ask that while the decision is pending, the owners of 39 Grace Court take proper care of the antique fence. It has been allowed to rust and decay, and the owners have a responsibility to repair and maintain it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Lexton.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Jeremy Lexton. I'm the chair of the Landmarks Committee of the Brooklyn Heights Association. We do not support this proposal. This project outright ignores Grace Court's unique architectural and historical significance to the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. As you've heard from many other testifiers today, Grace Court is a special street in Brooklyn Heights. The view into the gardens on Grace Court is through the historical iron fences, and it's a distinctive feature of this historic district. The Brooklyn Heights Association strongly believes that if construction is to occur here, the project needs to be conceptualized and evaluated by the commission as having a secondary building behind the primary house on Remsen Street. The existing condition of this site is not and should not be treated as an empty lot. Rather, it is a long lot with a very house on one end and a garden on the other. The applicant is already taking a unified approach for zoning purposes by treating the two tax lots that stand from Munson to Grace Court as a single zoning lot. We think it makes a lot of sense to do that for landmarks purposes as well and treat it as a single lot with two buildings. The proposal's failure to start on this holistic premise is why it is not appropriate. The project needs to be a sensitive addition that enhances the existing condition's singular sense of place instead of treating it as a blank slate. Only after community feedback was received about the historic fence was a half-hearted attempt made to even try to preserve some of it. Retaining the fence in its entirety should be the presumption. Retaining the fence in its entirety is not incompatible with living on Grace Court side of the site. There's already a waiting passage through the fence. The design should not be conceived as Roanoke's infill, even when appropriately adjusted to fit what zoning allows. This makes no sense because there was never any primary building on this Grace Court side of the site. The only structure here was something like a gazebo suited to the garden. Instead, an appropriate design here would celebrate the site's context through our district's rich precedents for subsidiary buildings, such as back houses and carriage buildings. The project's inappropriate starting point has resulted in an inexplicable facsimile of a Greek revival house. If there is no relationship with the primary Munson Street house to whose rear it sits, nor does it engage with the architectural heritage surrounding it on Grace Court. Buildings on Grace Court are all John's Church and the homes of the block and his family is allowed to be developed. A new Greek revival building here pretends like it was here before that, which is fake history. There is a diverse mix of building styles and types that could have served as inspiration for echoes or contrasts instead of an arbitrary choice of a style that does not appear on this block at all. We think this design needs to be completely examined before it will be deemed appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex Herrera?
Good morning. I'm Alex Herrera. I'm a conservationist and I live in Grace Court. I'm just retired from the Landmarks Conservancy, where I worked for many years. And before that, I worked here at the New York Landmarks Commission as Director of Preservation for quite a long time. I'm here today to urge the Commission not to approve this application. At first glance, it looks like an infill building on a vacant lot. Perhaps a lot that were buildings demolished a long time ago. Similar to the sorts of applications I think we're going to see often and recently approved in Brooklyn Heights, including building on Development Street and one on Dick Street. And these were lots where there had been buildings that had been demolished. This is a lot that is a garden that has graced the block since before the Civil War. One of a series of gardens that were built about the time that the houses on Munson Street were built in 1855. Defining these gardens is a monumental cast iron fence. I believe that it's dates from before the Civil War. And it's an 8-foot high fence with 5-foot tall walls. The walls are paneled and they have wood and the top is finished with the finial, type finial. And so the fence itself, and each lot has a gate in the fence to access the gardens. And the owners go in and out all the time. We've seen them coming and going from the gardens through these gates. The gardens are the character of Grace Court. In his book, Brooklyn Heights, the First Suburb, Glenn Lancaster wrote three city restaurants that were built on North Side Street prior to 1860. To the left of these houses is the row of deep backyards to residences on Munson Street, which have tall green fences on stone clippings around the lush planting, forming a unique feature of the street. Note that it was not vacant lots that form a feature of the street. The law that was monumental fence is antithetical to everything the Landmarks Commission stands for. The removal of original historic ornamental ironwork is not allowed anywhere else. Why should it be allowed here? And also, really, there are several historic pieces that the commission has designated as individual landmarks. In terms of the proposed building, I would understand that the system relates to the context of Grace Court, rather than to major European Hill or water down drive that could be inserted anywhere from Cobble Hill to Greenwich Village. Furthermore, what people are saying is a not a proposal for a single guard, but rather a prototype that will establish a de facto master plan for the entire block. One other on consideration is archaeology. This is an undisturbed site. Its prominent elevation and proximity to the river make it quite probable that members of the Lenape and Canarsie nations left their mark. We know so little about their history, this opportunity should not be wasted. Including in closing, please consider the very special fabric and history of this locale, and please insist on a much better design that reflects and is respectful of the unique history and heritage of this protected site. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to submit photos of the garden, the justice, and of the fence. Just to take a look. This is the garden, and you can see the residents are very sad at the idea of losing it.
All right, thank you very much. And Judy Stanton, I think you have another letter you'd like to read, so please come up.
Can you call on Tom? Then the guy is going to speak for himself. He's in Mexico and his camera went out.
Okay, all right, so before we move to the remote participants, I just want to make sure that there is nobody in the room who would like to speak on this item who hasn't already spoken.
I'm going to speak.
Okay, please come up and state your name and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Bromwitz, and I'm a resident of Grace Court. In fact, I'm a lifelong resident on Grace Court, and I've had the pleasure of growing up on that block and having so many memories there, which is why I deeply care about this proposal for a block, and I wanted to speak before all of you today. I'm strongly opposed to this proposal because the partial removal or alteration of the historic fence and the development of this beautiful historic garden on the lot truly would be deeply devastating to our block's identity and history, which is really important to me. Our block is really known for its unique street-facing gardens and the historic fence surrounding them, which attract tourists from all over the world. People are always stopping by, taking photos. It really is iconic and part of the key core identity of our block. This proposal would permanently erase a critical part of Brooklyn Heights history, which cannot be viewed elsewhere. And I think that's really important to note. 39 Grace Court is one of the very few remaining undeveloped garden lots in our neighborhood. And it really serves as a key reminder and marker of Brooklyn Heights' identity and historical role as the first suburb of New York. As such, this proposal should not be taken lightly at all. The proposed destruction of the historic fence and the historic green space, the garden, on the lot would be extremely detrimental to the character of our block. And that in itself, I think, is already enough for me to say I strongly oppose this, and I urge you to reject this proposal. But I would say even more concerning is this particular proposal for the construction of this building, which was outlined in the presentation. And thank you to others for noting it did change last night. So I want to echo others' concerns that I think we should all be given a bit more time to review the updated presentation, which was posted last night. I only got to take a short look last night. I think it's important for us all to get to review that. But I really want to, from reviewing the updated presentation and also the previous versions, I strongly believe that this design is not appropriate, both for the overall neighborhood, but also for a block in particular, for reasons that others have also mentioned. I don't think it fits in with the architectural character of our block or its identity, and it would actually detract from the character, the appearance, the uniqueness of the block rather than adding to it. It does present as a more bland and modern structure. And I know some recent developments in the neighborhood have been very out of line with their context, being a little bit more modern. And I think I'd really like to see something that fits in with our block. I think this would stand out rather than embrace the history of our block. So I urge you to please reject this proposal to save the history and character of Grace Court. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I'm going to turn it over to Gregory Collett to take us through any remote participants. And if we can't reach Tom Vandenbout, Judy will have you come up afterwards. Okay.
Thank you, Chair Carl. We have a few hands raised in the attendance list right now. The first we'll be hearing from is Tom Vandenbout. So Tom Vandenbout, I am promoting you to panelist right now. So once you're there, please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Tom Vandenbout. I'm a practicing architect, longtime resident of Brooklyn Heights, and a BHA member. And although I moved to Mexico 5 years ago, the significance of this project has motivated me to write the letter that I'm reading, as well as show up this morning via Zoom. The current proposal to construct a single-family house is, in my opinion, completely inappropriate, and I sincerely hope the commissioners agree. Any development within this assembly of gardens on Grace Court should start from acknowledging that this green area is not simply composed of a group of vacant lots. These gardens, joined together and exposed to the street, are unique to the historic district, if not the city. They make a significant contribution to the character of the street and have been doing so for generations. The attention placed on rear yard development within the standard green donut should be the very minimum for determination of appropriateness here. Given that these yards are fully part of the streetscape, an architectural solution should not be judged as though it were simply infill of a missing tooth. Additionally, the continuous historic iron fence is a very important element to preserve. It is not a standard row house entry areaway fence. Rather, it is a tall garden fence. An infill house set behind it doesn't make sense. Hence, the applicant's desires to remove it, or as of last night, truncate it. This speaks directly to the need for a more inventive architectural solution for the house itself. The fence should be preserved fully, and the house designed with a completely different typology that allows it to acknowledge the high fence as well as the garden around it. The fence, the house design struggles with its own scale. It's a relatively small house with floors stepping down quickly at the rear, but presents itself as a standard row house at the street. The applicant would do better to embrace the limited size of the allowed development and to look at the many excellent examples of carriage houses and back houses, or potentially even garden pavilions and follies. Simply rotating the massing 180 degrees might be a good start. Of equal issue is the arbitrary choice of the Greek Revival style. This style has no relationship to this block or to the house on Remsen Street with which it's paired. Any development on the proposed site will undoubtedly trigger additional proposals within the garden. This location requires thoughtfulness, invention, an eye toward retention of some order of openness and green space. A series of infill townhomes, regardless of their style, would be a failure of imagination and a loss of a green gem in the center of this district. I sincerely hope that a new design will be developed that will celebrate the unique character of the garden space and maintain the special character of this beloved block. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Liam Egan. Liam Egan, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone here. And I appreciate you all giving me the time to speak. And after having dug into this quite a bit, I do appreciate as well the amount of time and effort that everybody, both opposed and in favor to this proposal, as well as the committee, have put in terms of their effort, their time, and their passion for the neighborhood. I would like to come out and note that I am a resident of 1 Grace Court. I've been here for coming up on 2 years. I'm a younger resident of the neighborhood, moving in as part of the next generation who can appreciate the history of the neighborhood, the composition of the neighborhood, and the overall character of the neighborhood. I would like to note that I am in favor of the proposal to build on 39 Grace Court for a handful of reasons. I grew up in Boston in a historically zoned neighborhood called Back Bay, and I witnessed the frustration of residents when a inappropriate project was built. There was a development before it was zoned as a historic district in 1971, 180 Commonwealth, or 180 Beacon. That was a 20-story tower in a historically brownstone neighborhood. It was a blight, and I understand that this was frustrating to the community. But as time progressed, the zoning and the application of the preservation of a historical neighborhood pivoted away from preventing large disruptive projects and towards smaller, less important projects. So there would be petitions to build a roof deck that was not visible from the street that would be denied for this reason or that. So I understand the concerns of the neighborhood on the building of a new house that might cause traffic in the neighborhood or might impact the green space, for example. But I do not think that those concerns outweigh the need in New York to develop more housing, whether that be single family, multifamily, or otherwise. I think that broadly across New York, there is no cohesive, unified strategy to prevent new housing. I believe that the residents of New York do want to see New York grow, want to see us have more housing, and want to see rents decrease as they've increased at a clip 3 times higher over the past 23 years than the median metro area in the United States. But this is not a cohesive anti-housing policy. It is the result of small cohorts within neighborhoods, death by 1,000 cuts metric, where it's sure, we should build housing, just not right next door to me. So I do believe, again, that it's important that all of the factors are considered in terms of the applicability to the neighborhood. But
Provide your testimony, please.
yes, sorry. So anyway, my point being, I'm in favor of the proposal, given that I do believe that it has been properly explained. The team that has been building out the development has explained the rights that they have to build on this property or on this lot. And I don't think that it would be I don't think it would cross the threshold of violating the historical landmark that is Brooklyn Heights.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Christina Conroy from the Victorian Society of New York. Christina Conroy, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society, New York. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much.
Okay, 39 Grace Court has been a private garden for 170 years. If that history is to be changed, the newly proposed structure needs to be of an architectural caliber similar to that of other townhouses in both the immediate vicinity and general neighborhood of Brooklyn Heights. The sited townhouses on Grace Court are relatively ornate with foliated brackets flanking doorways, thick cast iron balustrades, and elaborately designed cornices. By comparison, the proposed design of 39 Grace Court is restrained, seemingly modeled on the more simply designed townhouses in Brooklyn Heights, often from an earlier time period. Now, a closer look, however, reveals that the proposed facade is more like a simplified and stripped version of these earlier houses. This is then combined with 2/2 sash and an oriel window, both features of later 19th century styles. Now, the VSNY is happy to support new traditional architecture in this district, but we urge the commissioners to require that more care and attention be given to fitting this facade design seamlessly into the environment of its immediate surroundings, and more convincing and consistent stylistic detailing is necessary. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Michael Streeter. Michael Streeter, I am promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please just name for the record.
Good morning. I'm Michael Streeter. I live on Grace Court, and I've been here for about 10 years. I want to voice my opposition to the proposal as it is as well, and I second the arguments already made by my neighbors and others who have come up to speak out against it. The main reason for me is that this is a garden lot, not a vacant lot, and I think it's being treated as a vacant lot. And the gardens and the historic iron fence are a huge part of the character of our street. Almost every day, I see people taking selfies here, posing for bridal photos by that gate, or by that fence. If any exception would ever be made, I believe it should be for an appropriate proposal that respects the character of the street, while adding much needed additional housing, and not a single family home, the construction of which is going to disrupt the lives of Grace Court's residents and visitors for years. So mostly for that reason, I'm in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we will be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. Please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the massing and the bulk of this new building to be largely appropriate, but we're concerned that some of the building's proportions and details are not yet fully resolved and require further refinement. It seems clear that the applicants are trying to design a building that will largely disappear into the neighborhood. To achieve that, we believe the oriel window requires further careful study because it currently looks too small. Additionally, the detailing of the roof and cornice is awkward. We encourage the applicant to make a more careful study of the bays and oriels in their precedent images and then develop those details. The fenestration on the rear facade is also unresolved. There appear to be 6 or 7 different window types within 5 different masonry openings. Further study of this garden facade might help the applicant to reduce the number of window types used. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm looking through our attendees now, and I do not see any further hands raised. If you would like to speak on this item, please click the raise hand button now. Okay, I believe that is every person who would like to have spoken on this issue. So I will also just note for the record that we received a joint letter from both Council Member Ressler and Assembly Member Simon recommending denial. Brooklyn Community Board 2 sent their resolution recommending conditional approval, requesting that the owners and their design team continue to work with the neighbors, the Brooklyn Heights Association and Landmark Preservation Commission to refine the design of the proposed development. And we also received 43 additional letters of testimony, 33 of which recommended denial and 10 of which recommended approval. And with that, I'll bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Okay, so I'd like to ask if you'd like to respond to the comments we've heard. And maybe if you could sort of organize your responses in sort of the first question about the garden and the fence and whether it's appropriate to have a building here and why, and then the design responses.
Absolutely. Well, first, I just want to make mention of one thing that was raised by a few different people. This is Jackie Peterville again speaking. A couple of people voiced concern about the fact that the presentation had changed slightly between Friday and yesterday. That was because Landmark staff very generously gave us some extra time to get the revised presentation in so that it could be put into this queue for today by a staff person yesterday afternoon, because on Friday, Landmark staff informed us that our presentation was just too long. We needed to cut it down. So we put a lot of content into the appendix. We made one correction to a drawing where a fence was drawn in where previously had not been drawn in on the other side of 45 Grace, and we added one historic photo. So those are the only changes that happened between Friday and yesterday. Nothing about the proposal had changed between those 2 days. Now, regarding the lot itself, as I described earlier, this has always been private property. There's never been public access onto this property. Yes, there are, on these fences, there are gates where, as one person mentioned, owners come and go from their Renton Street houses onto Grace Court, but that has not included public access into these yards, which have just really by happenstance of history, people have been afforded a public view into private spaces by this open iron fence. I believe it's appropriate to allow development on a privately owned lot, in particular when that development is in keeping with the historical style that you find prevalent within the historic district, and when it's being detailed carefully and scrutinized carefully by this commission. I also wanted to say it's interesting as I tried to demonstrate briefly in this presentation, that this block, as with any other block in the city, has seen change, has had change be a part of its story. And as I was researching it, I found a book from 1927, which included letters from residents of Grace Court, where one woman in particular who lived at 36 Grace Court in the 1920s was lamenting the loss of the Packer Mansion at 2 Grace Court, and comparing the current apartment building that stands there now as a monstrosity. Now, with the perspective of history, we would never think or call that beautiful building a monstrosity. But to people who were living there 100 years ago and saw that change from an individual mansion to a large apartment building, it was a change that they couldn't fathom. So I'm hoping that with the fullness of time, people living in Grace Court and within this district will see an additional building on Grace Court as an asset to the streetscape as well. Regarding the proposed design, as I said before, I think it would be harmonious with the streetscape in terms of materials, its scale, certainly more so in the large mid-century apartment building that it would be abutting. I also want to say that I am grateful that this district was designated in the 1960s, and that we thankfully have the landmarks law, that we have this commission and this process by which this commission can consider in an informed and objective manner changes that are to be made to historic districts over time. The purpose, my belief as a professional preservationist is that preservation practice is not to try to freeze a building or a historic district in time, but to make sure that any changes are sympathetic to historic fabric and to the character of a district as a whole. I think that proposed design meets the commission's standards for new buildings in historic districts, and that its style replicates an architectural style that is commonly found within the district, as I said before. And lastly, I think it's also consistent with the more demure
Greek Revival inspired designs that had been previously approved in recent years. With that, I'd like to also introduce the architect again to also speak to the comments. Thank you.
It's not common. Just briefly, I know a few people did mention the idea of using different technologies such as cottage houses. We did look at this at the beginning of the process. However, just with the elimination of that ground floor for usable habitable space, it just left it too small for use for a growing family. And also, we saw that that technology is not existing on Grace Court. So for that reason, we decided to go in this direction.
All right, commissioners, do we have questions? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
I have the first one's to council. What is the legal issues related to maintaining the open space or not maintaining it? I mean, are we permitted to say it's a landmark district?
Well, it is part of the landmark district, so the issue for the commission really is appropriateness, right? So is it appropriate to build on this lot, on this particular lot or this part of this lot, given the sort of history of sort of the district and the history of the use of this property? And when considering that, I think it's really important as to understand various things. First, the commission approves subdivisions of large lots and construction of them all the time. Okay. Secondly, this is a lot that faced a street. That originally was a lot that faced a street. It's in an urban district that has row houses on it, or it's built on both sides. Secondly, the status as a garden is not a protected status from our perspective, in the sense that we don't regulate it. Tomorrow, the owners of these gardens could remove all the trees, remove all the bushes. They could build huge hedges in front of the fence, behind the fence to block all access. There are fences running perpendicular to the fence back to the houses. So we don't regulate this garden in that sense. It's a private garden that has been visually accessible, but it's nonetheless a private garden. And so the question really is, given that history and those facts, is it appropriate to remove this fence? And again, it's a decision to say this fence, even if it's deemed significant, is it appropriate to remove it or adapt it or reuse it in some way? And then if it is appropriate to build on this lot, what is appropriate building to build on?
Thank you. Then I have a question for the applicant. Can you look at the fence and building behind it?
Yes, we did. Because we're on the street front, it's just so high, and it seemed inappropriate for an areaway, which is what we're creating there. The fence is in total about 8 feet tall, so it just didn't seem appropriate. Thank you.
Is the apartment building set back from the property line? Okay, and so that's why you have a stoop and you can still align with it. Okay, Commissioner Chen?
It's just a question to the council on the issue of the garden. So now the constitution will before we go as a garden.
Well, I would say that there is not an issue of a taking here, because as at this moment in time, these are one lot. The subdivision that occurred here, the commission generally is required to approve subdivisions. We approve them with the caveat that approval of the subdivision is not deemed an approval of any future, building on the lot. So the question, so I don't believe there's a takings issue here.
All right, and Jackie, you may have already gone through this, but if you can just walk us through the development history here. This these were essentially the rear yards for the buildings that faced Remsen Street.
Correct.
And then prior to all of the lots were subdivided.
Let me just get to those maps. It's my understanding that there are currently 9 private gardens that are visible on Grace Court. And of those 9, 6 have been subdivided, including number 39, Grace Court. So 6 of those lots have their own Grace Court addresses.
But they currently function as a backyard.
But they currently function as a backyard. I should also, one thing else I should note, these owners do not also own 37. They don't own the lot adjoining to the west. The previous owner that they bought this property from did own 39 and 37 Grace Court. These owners only own 39. Did I answer your question, or do you want to look at the historic maps?
You did, and I just had a follow-up question to that, and that is that, so I heard in the testimony that this is a merged zoning lot with the building on Remsen Street.
Right.
And is that necessary in order to construct a building on this subdivided tax lot? And would that be true for the other 6 lots?
I better let the architect answer that.
Okay.
So yes, so it is a single zoning law. So there is a sharing of FAR between those 2 addresses.
Okay, and that is needed in order to have the FAR to build the new building on Grace Court?
Well, at 36 Remsen, because it is so largely overbuilt, it's a small amount of FAR that's remaining.
Okay.
For 39 Grace Court.
And do you know if that would be required for the other 6 lots that are subdivided? In order for them to construct something, they would have to merge the zoning or do a single zoning lot with the building behind?
I couldn't say, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And so this is a full word zoning lot and reduced FAR. This is, you are building out fully with the remaining FAR in this building.
Just under.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, other final questions?
Sarah?
Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with it anyway. So I can't use the hand. I just was wondering about, this is a very unusual circumstance, I think. Can you think, you or the council think of any precedents where we have had a really long-term, many decades, property that was vacant, a lot that was vacant, that has any similarity to this kind of situation? I'm just interested in whether I can't think of anything myself that I've, we reviewed, particularly that had this kind of longevity.
This is Mark speaking, Commissioner. The commission approves, construction of new buildings and vacant lots all the time. And most of those, or many of them, have had buildings at one time or another. They may have been vacant for a long time. I don't know what to call. The 2 things that do come to mind are the approval on Sterling Place in Crown Heights last year, where on the large building there that was from an orphanage, I believe it was, and it had, it was visible on to the sides, and it had a very large rear yard facing Sterling Street. That it wasn't a garden, but it was open space, and people had been open space for probably a similar amount of time since it was built. And the commission in that case found it appropriate to build a new building along Sterling Place. And I think the other one I can think of is the Sage Mansion in also in Crown Heights. That was a mansion built actually with a side garden. It was not a case like this, was an ad hoc garden. This was really a design for the mansion. The commission did allow in that case the construction of a new building that took place in that side yard, set back from the street.
Yeah, and I think that, maybe another example would be some of the religious properties where we have approved, there were a church building with a yard around it, and we've approved new construction on a portion of the lot, or in some cases, a subdivided portion of the lot. And maybe, yes, in a minute. And I was just going to also maybe bring up the flag place, all the flag cottages that are designated. We have any new buildings on those sites.
I just remembered a project of mine that was approved last year, 162 Hancock Street in the Bedford Historic District, which was two adjoining empty lots that were owned by a neighboring mansion house. These two empty lots were treated as a public garden when the owners of that house allowed public access onto their garden space, but it had since been subdivided into two lots and sold. And the commission last year approved a new house on one of those lots.
That helped, Commissioner Chapin?
Yeah, thank you for the examples. Thank you. Thanks.
And each site is specific. And so has its own specific history and citing conditions to be considered. Yes, Commissioner Goldblum.
This is a really interesting conversation, and I hear what you're saying, Mark and Sarah and the applicants. I'm wondering, why is this different from someone who were to own a townhouse in a designated district and wanted to build their own, let's say in Cobble Hill or somewhere where they have a very deep, Cobble Hill, Prospect Heights, with a very deep backyards, want to put in a rear yard ADU or, back building. How is that different? How is this different from how we would treat a typical townhouse where they wanted to propose a new structure in the backyard? What we would, in that case, I think what we would do is we would look to see if there were other structures in backyards that, you could say was a precedent for how the semi-public donut space was developed. Why is this different than that? And, why are we looking at it, or should we be looking at it like, is there a precedent for developing backyard buildings in this space, in this donut, which, we legislate on a regular basis?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. We have, of course, looked at proposals for back buildings in fully developed blocks. And in those cases, we would have looked at the context to see if it had other back buildings, other deep additions, and that building would engage and interact with any central green space. Mm-hmm. And so that's one way to think about this as a back building. It also faces a street. So I think there are different ways that one could look at this. I don't think any one of these is a perfect precedent or example. I think it's
on that line, the older houses at the west end of the block that were developed, were they developed after the houses on Remsen? Were they subdivided at an earlier time? And would that kind of form a precedent for looking at this as a kind of developing typology for the block that was kind of sanctioned by its history, as opposed to something, someone who came in the 60s and just blew it out?
I think, I don't know if you can answer that question. You have some of the historic maps now.
Yeah, and also I think that the chair said, Commissioner, is really important that this was laid out as lots facing the street. And I think it's an urban context with lots facing the street. And I would say that the example is actually a really good example. And the commissioners, I'm sure, will be dealing with that question more and more as time goes on. But another example, I would say, are donor houses in row house districts that have open new yards that historically have been built up with garages or other kinds of enclosures that happen. And the commission sort of recognizes that as an appropriate development
And, you know, it's something that we don't handle on occasion. So that's another example. I think that the facing of the street, the purely private nature of it, it's really important that, people are very, obviously very fond of and affected by the fact these are gardens. But I just need to stress, we do not regulate these gardens. Tomorrow they can be mowed to the ground, gravel could be put there, and a basketball court. There's a lot of kids playing basketball 24/7 that might be less endearing to people. So my point is simply that this is somewhat a private gift to by people to the community, and it's not something that we regulate or can regulate. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? All right, I think what we'll do is we'll move to close the hearing and begin our discussion. And I think there is a lot to think about here. We have heard a lot from the applicants. We've heard a lot from the public. We have we've had discussion about our own regulatory actions and jurisdiction, and it may be something that you all need some time to think about some more, but to the extent that we can give some substantive comments today, I think that would be really helpful. So with that, Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
Sure.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chu, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed, and let's see if you're comfortable with, a real direction at this point. That's very welcomed, but if you need more time, that's okay too. And we'll just see what we can get through as we have a discussion today. Vice Chair Bland, would you like to start this one?
I guess it's my job to do so. I think this discussion, which Commissioner Redmond has just suggested it certainly is appropriate and worthy of occurring for the state's first historic district. This is an appropriate sort of meaty discussion to get into, I think. Excuse me. First of all, I want to say I sort of reject the notion that they were to build a new house in Brooklyn Heights or maybe anywhere else. It's just pick and choose among the many varieties that exist in the neighborhood and replicate it or try to replicate it. I think it's much more a sophisticated, deeper, thoughtful analysis than that. I also want to not focus particularly on the fairly insipid design that we see. I think its proportions are off. And I'm not at all convinced that if this is the direction that the commission wants to go in, that working with these 11 commissioners and our great staff, that we couldn't work out something that works. This doesn't work right now as a design. But I'm thinking much beyond that. And I'm thinking that it's just not appropriate to put a building here at all. And let me try to frame my thoughts on that. Sorry. Drink the water over the boil time. I say that with full recognition that the city needs new housing. I support the idea fully. I also say that in recognition of a recent series of articles in the opinion section of the New York Times, which featured Brooklyn Heights as a fossilized part of our city. Having lived there now for 52 years, I can assure you it's not fossilized. It's a growing, changing, active community that this commission has approved many new buildings and changes to just in the last few years alone. I also reject the notion that creating one single family house on this property is in any way helping to fix the problem of housing in New York City. That's just a rejection on my part. So I think should be eliminated from the discussion, at least I eliminated it. So why is it that I think that this is inappropriate to build anything here? I may be on shaky ground if I start saying it's the fence. But it is the fence, and the fence is an old, early 19th century, I think I've heard, artifact, and I don't think we just remove these things without some major considerations. And although this scheme tries to deal with it, I don't think they did it in a way that I can accept. So maybe I'm on less shaky ground, maybe not. When it comes to just the nature of the open space on this block and how it contributes and has almost from the beginning, creating the character of this street, this one little dead-end street. And I think that is, notwithstanding all that we've just heard in terms of the legalities or not legalities of where we are on this, I simply can't see myself thinking that it's appropriate to change that notion of the openness of the street. I fully accept that basketball courts may well exist, but so be it. I still don't think the building should exist though. Has been noted by many who testified, this is not a vacant lot. At least in my judgment, it's not a vacant lot. Like so many others, or very few others that exist in Brooklyn Heights have been in recent years developed with the approval of this commission. This is different. And it leads to what could be called a precedent. And I spent 15 years talking about how precedent often is not something that at least I talk about here, because I think every applicant and every application is its own unique set of rules and regulations. The rules actually deal with the issues that maybe are precedents. But when they come to this commission for us, they're really not precedents. So I think everything we do here and opinions that we make around this table are general, don't rely so much on precedent. But I do think that this building would lead to a precedent for other buildings along Grace Court L, and I think that would be the horror of the change, the dramatic change of the streetscape and the feeling of this historic street and the buildings along it. Across the street is Richard Upjohn's, one of his greatest churches. Remember, he was also the architect of Trinity Church on Wall Street. Same time, same year. A wonderful building. And if buildings started to go across the street from that as opposed to these open yards for 175 years, it would change the notion of the whole street, not just those lots. Furthermore, and finally, maybe right other speech here, if that were to be true, in fact, even if this building were to be built, the ability to see and appreciate the rear elevations of those buildings on Remsen Street would be curtailed, if not eliminated. And I want to suggest to you the history of that street. Initially, there were 1845, 1850, there were houses that probably 35 or 50 feet deep at most. Then, along in the latter part of the 19th century, then Remsen Street became our street. And people added rather elaborate, in fact, including Epiphany Chapel on the back of one of the buildings on the third or fourth and fifth floors, where it was highly visible. I don't want to lose, for the public, I don't want to lose the ability to see the rear of those buildings. In a way, it's like the promenade. The promenade, looks at the backs of all these buildings, but the backs have all become rather amazing too. So I think all of that is part and parcel of why I think I would find it very hard for me to make an approval for any building site.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Lutfi?
I always like to listen to Fred speak about this neighborhood because nobody knows better than he does. And he's been intimately involved with it in many ways and currently as a commissioner. I think this is a difficult situation. But I think I'm just going to jump around and make a bunch of different points. I think the community is making very valid points. And one of the points that I hear them making is, and I think this is the loudest point, is that they need to be spoken to and collaborated with more on this project. It was, although we heard some members of the community say, we think you should deny this. They spoke about the garden. They spoke about the open space. There were many people who talked about the fact that contextually, this didn't really, I'm just going to say, fit in or do justice to what already visually exists on this block. And they felt that even these recent changes were shared with them, at the last minute. In any kind of development like this, whether it's a big development, whether it's change to an important cultural institution, where it affects really is going to have an impact. And this is in I'm not going to say it's in a small way, it's in an important way within a small area. It's very important not only to think that way, but to make sure that a community that is very engaged and I think in many ways very open-minded, provided that the projects that come to them are thoughtfully conceived and I'm using the word collaboration because I think it is important when you're dealing with women and are shared in a collaborative and open way. So I don't think, it didn't sound to me like that has happened here. So from that perspective alone, I believe that the applicant needs to go back and speak and work a little harder than it has. I also believe that, and just going back to my point, that this is a very important block with this special condition and also like wonderful architecture. I think this project needs to rise to the occasion, and it cannot be a pastiche of things that, sort of resemble in a generic way what's going on this street or even in this district as a whole, but doesn't add to the vernacular or just the specialness of the neighborhood. Now, I don't think it has to mimic what is there. It actually could be more modern, but the building has to really hold up in an important way. And in that regard, I think you need to do more work too. So I feel like, we deal with this situation in different ways in many different neighborhoods. There is a lot. Sometimes it is vacant, but it is privately owned, and it is, there's where someone owns it and they decide that they're going to fill in that empty space. We deal with it all the time. The community gets engaged. We did it not so long ago in I'll bring it up in a minute, but we do it all the time. And again, I don't see how, based on what I'm hearing from Mark and from the commission, we can actually say, no, this cannot happen. Neighborhoods change and neighborhoods evolve. I personally, as some of my fellow commissioners know, and this is a slightly different situation and not under our purview, have been outraged that the view corridor to the Empire State Building has been blocked by a new building. It's horrifying, but we have no control. Actually, I was speaking about Bed-Stuy, that one in Bed-Stuy that we dealt with recently. So anyway, I think we have to keep this stuff in mind. Neighborhoods evolve, but we also have to be thoughtful and ensure that applicants are thoughtful, respectful, and they bring their best problem-solving, creative selves to the table, and that they engage fully and sincerely with the community. And then in terms of the fence, and I don't know if I said this, but oftentimes fabric is either removed or reintegrated or stored on the site. And I think that's another thing, that's something else that has to be considered. And finally, this is such a detail in a project that I think needs work. I don't think you can really, the wood fencing at the roof, it's highly visible. And that's just not going to work. That materiality doesn't go with anything that's in this vicinity. And I also think even the backyard needs to be looked at a little more. I mean, the way that, incursion into down, the way it impacts the garden. I think in a way, again, this is also conceptual, it's a little disrespectful to the garden concept. So that's it for now. Okay, all right. And Mark, I'm just going to.
I just wanted to be clear, Commissioner. Was not my intention to say we cannot, find it appropriate not to build on, to preserve the site as is. That was, my point was to lay out the issues that needed to be confronted and addressed in finding that option appropriate.
Commissioner Chu, thank you.
I think that looking at this very specific and special site, what I'd like to do is think about the actual beauty and historic nature of this specific site, which is about not just the built environment, but the green space and how the two relate to each other. the positive and beautiful aspects of the site are the relationships of the back of these houses to that green space having more than one front. And therefore, I find that this proposal is not appropriate for this specific historic site. And that is because it feels to me that the design is very insular and inward looking. And I think especially it's the rear that I'm responding the most to, because it feels like it's a cage. It closing itself from what could be a wonderful relationship between itself and the green space that it in fact has around it and surrounding it if it were built, which is a huge amenity that many sites do not have. And that is, I think, characterized by even just the section. The cellar level, at the top of the cellar level is above grade, making this wood fence incredibly tall. And it, like, there's no relationship of the yard of the lot to the green space. It's been divorced completely and it's walled off. The upper portion also does not seem appropriate. It's, to me, another cage. The scale of this mass is relatively small and could become almost a folly. And therefore could have a nicer relationship to the green space predominant around it. I can make a lot of comments about the actual articulation of the facades. I don't want to get too much into it, but I think it is the nature of the design that I'm responding to. It doesn't share the adjacency or take advantage of the beauty around it, or in fact provide beauty for the surroundings to look at from the rear. It really feels like it's walled off. I will make some comments. I think it may be helpful as we move forward if the applicant were to revise their proposal. I do think that the front facade seems odd in its proportions and window placement and masonry and window relationships seem a bit off. I also urge them to look carefully at the detailing of brick. Some of the details that appeared that not the full module was used on returns, and that's extremely important to the integrity of the skin. The rear windows seem random and varied in a way that is messy in my mind. It doesn't hold itself as a singular statement, and doesn't have any relationship to the scale of windows surrounding it. I would say that the bay window also feels awkward in its attempt to replicate a historic style unsuccessfully. I would have considered another style. As my previous commissions have noted, there is nothing that guarantees more approval because you're trying to use a historic style. And in this case, I don't think it is that successful. The projection feels awkward. Its height feels awkward in terms of its relationship to the ground plane and the windows above. I also think that in general, the wrought iron fence, which is very, very old and historic, I would want to see some more attempt to retain its character here on the site. It's the one remnant piece of fabric that is actually very historic and old here. And I would rather that the applicant work with the character of the historic nature as opposed to eliminate it. Those are my comments.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioner Master?
Yeah, this is a very interesting project with a lot of community involvement. And it's nice to see that the community feels so passionate about this space and this garden. But as the Brooklyn Community Board stated, it is a private lot that's been subdivided and they can build as of right. I understand that the iron fence, is historic and, is something that people want to preserve. But it hasn't been individually landmarked as have been some iron fences, as in Snug Harbor, which is an individual landmark. So
I think that they probably can remove it. It would be nice if they did preserve it or preserve as much of it as they can, to respect, the garden space and the role that it's played in this neighborhood. In terms of the detailing, I think a lot of the commissioners have noted that the detailing needs work. I think the front facade, the windows, perhaps there's too much spacing between the windows. The oil window doesn't seem to be successful in the placement. I think there's some work to be done. The trellis in the back is probably inappropriate here. And I think that Commissioner Chu made a very good statement about the wooden fence kind of blocking off the space rather than, kind of contributing to the green space. So I think that the style of the building definitely needs some work.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Look at this as my fellow commissioners looked at it, and the issue for me is I'm going to be trying to be as real as possible until with the facade. And to comment early that at some point on this block, there were 2 6-story buildings built in the 1960s, somewhere or so. And just a comment on that. The issue with the building is 25 feet wide. If you look at these proportions, they're totally off. And I think it has to do with the width of the building and the size of the windows and the LB, the proportions that are used. And I think it should be studied. I agree with Commissioner Chu on everything he said makes total sense. And the fence, particularly the bay window. I mean, was the building bigger than the entrance bigger than the bay window, proportional stuff that we looked at. But the fence itself is really an interesting issue of whether you keep it as is, as a memento, as a piece of history, and fold it in to this facade in a creative way, or you just cut it. And I think I'll go for A, fold it in some kind of creative way, not have the remnants of this or be in front and the other things in the back, or somehow related to now and the past.
Right, thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Thank you. First, to the issue of buildability in general. I think my head kind of operates in trying to find a relevant, consistent way to apply our practice and precedent here. Not that this is a precedent per se, but to think about how this fits into our overall approach to construction in new construction in historic districts, specifically in townhouse districts. And so that's why I kind of brought up the idea of, what is it? And how does the development, the historic development that we are preserving, how does it key in with this particular site? I mean, we all the time tell people that they can't do what the zoning allows them to do, right? We all the time say you can't tear down your townhouse and build an apartment building even if the zoning allows you to do it. So the notion of saying no, I think is acceptable. But for me, looking at this historic ensemble, I feel that this section which seems to have been subdivided with an intention for development at some point. It seems to me that, and there having been precedent that we protect, that were developed in similar situations, just a couple of doors down, seems to suggest to me that this is not a case like Frick, where you have a street-facing garden that was intended to be temporary. here. I don't think this is like that. I think this is different. I think Fred's point about how one views the church, however, makes the lots that are to the east of the block, for me, different. I think that there is a historic condition that might merit a different way of looking at development on those lots than on these. And I think you do have to look at this as if our decision on this lot would make it a lot easier for people in this row to do the same thing for their back lots. And I think about it in that context. So I think that this particular lot, development per se, would be appropriate because of the precedent, because of the way that the site's been developed and that the block's been developed. I think that the fence, it's so funny because the Upper East Side, people would be clamoring for this fence. Can I make it 12 feet high? Can I make it 20 feet long? And so here, you know, I think that there, with that in mind, I consider there are plenty of precedent in New York City for tall fences in front of historic buildings that we sometimes grudgingly approve of. Here you have a historic artifact. I think there's no question, especially since it has gates in it already, and that access through it is acceptable. If you just flip this house, you have 90% of the gate with a small opening with a stoop next to the 60s building. So you could preserve, there's lots of ways to do this, either with a gate through it or cutting it back a little bit. You can preserve the gate. And then in terms of the architecture itself, I so empathize with the architects. It's kind of, the building looks, it's like the visual equivalent of a defensive crouch. When you're in a situation with lots of opposition, you know, do you want to be bold? Or you want to be super conservative and don't look at me? And this building looks very much like the latter. And I think that's proving to be a mistake. And the discussion was so interesting by the folks who testified, whom I thank very much for their time, in that it kind of sorted into two categories. Don't do anything and do something that's of a different typology to reflect the uniqueness of the site. And I find myself agreeing very much with the latter opinion. And then you say to yourself, well, what should I do? What should my model be? You know, looking down the block, you see other examples of buildings that built on this particular block in the 1870s, 1880s, whenever it was, you know, and that would be historically protected. You know, we would find them to have contributed to the district as opposed to the 1960s apartment building, which we probably wouldn't. So that's one way. Deal with it as infill, right? And then the question is, what's a texturally appropriate infill? And, you know, the argument can be made that this particular style would not be an appropriate style. That's an argument that you can make. Then the other way to look at it is to say, well, maybe it should be a carriage house or a garden pavilion. There's no precedent for that on the block. But then again, I don't think that that's necessarily a reason not to try it. I think that the notion of this building as a unique response to a unique condition would send me to suggest that exploring other typologies would be appropriate. And the thing that jumped out, the first image that popped in my head when I looked at this and heard the discussion was the Rockefeller Townhouse by Philip Johnson upside down. You know, that's a building with a totally transparent top and a totally opaque bottom. And if you kind of imagine this building as either a very tight carriage house or a garden pavilion, you know, seeing it as transparent because it's only, 40 feet deep, it's very shallow. You know, thinking about it as conceptually transparent and also as engaging on its side with what is, for the time being anyway, still a garden, seems to me to be a way to make this project fuse better with its site and respect its site better while achieving the goals of putting a house there, which I think is an appropriate goal. So I think there's lots to do. I think that the applicant should definitely explore getting out of their defensive crouch and trying something a little bit more site specific that would seek to engage its condition, that would, I think on Stephen's point about the garden, I think it's very important. Contiguity with the backyard, I think, since it is very visible from the street for the time being, we don't know that someone's going to come along and put 3 more houses there. I think that the view from the side is something that we always cover. So the notion of contiguity with a landscape space, I think, is important, especially since it is factually on the same lot as the existing house. So from many perspectives, I think it's reasonable to suggest that the garden of this structure should be at the level of the garden of the rest of the visible lots.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
Good. Well, I agree with a lot of comments of my fellow commissioners, but I want to make a few because it may help in trying to figure out how to move ahead. So first of all, I want to compliment you on proposing a passive house building, which I think is a good thing, although not directly germane to most of what we're discussing. I am not sure that any construction on this site would be appropriate, as Commissioner Bland talked about. But if it is, first of all, I think the fence should stay. The building should be set back somewhat from the fence. And I think the comments that Commissioner Goldstein and others made about, and Commissioner Chu, of relating to the garden is really important. And I tend to think that when you step back to the fence, I like Michael's comment of the Johnson building and glass at the bottom, that the building, I mean, and again, style isn't always what we're talking about, but something that was more modern to set off against the fence might be more appropriate.
Thank you, Commissioner Chen.
Thank you, Chair. Very interesting comments by the applicants as well as the commissioners. I have the greatest respect for the vice chair, as you know, he has been over the years. So I tend to defend it. It's no exception in this case. What's so different about this case is that the site is unique. The site is one of the workforce, and the building that you're around were not because they were about before they were understood. You know, the picture is saying, you know, this is not a common site that you will see. And so therefore, as Commissioner Ginsburg just alluded to, I'm in a petition that, you know, whether it's, that's why I asked the question of the council, whether it's just, you know, this is worthy of preserving that challenge, we challenge nobody about, this institutional issue of energy. But what's new is obviously that what the should correctly figure out is how do you improve if there's something within the site? How do you integrate it, enhance what is already there, which involves very beautiful and is worth, you know, is our fiduciary responsibility to really, you know, do much better than just simply put up something that's so comment about, you know, so I subscribe to the principle that we should engage with that lot and the surrounding neighborhood. And I prefer that which is interesting, what if you were to flip this building from the back to the front. And so I design here, but I just figured that I still have the issue without going for the first hurdle, but I think there definitely should be some sort of exploration.
Thank you, Commissioner Chapin.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. You know, we approve a lot of new buildings, and in each situation, it's really a different and unique situation. I think that in this case, what I found challenging is how this block open space character has stayed really quite consistent over a very long period of time. As we often look at historic layering, and it's something we have considered many times, though we don't always let it dictate what we decide. In what I find unusual in this case, compared to other situations where we, review vacant properties, let's call it, I think the perception of the block has really been impacted and shaped by the existence of this connected series of open spaces. However, I think that we'll probably be in a situation where we are approving something at the site. And in that case, I think that the building that's being proposed here is really not, the design is not really have the character and detail for it to be stylistically appropriate to the district. So I think it needs more work. As many others have commented, I don't think I have to go through what the comments have said, which I think are quite helpful. I also think that the visible terrace is inappropriate and kind of doesn't fit in with the district. And the suggestions about making it more site specific and having it relate more to the sense of open space, I think could be helpful, though I'm not sure exactly how those might be worked out. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone who participated here, the applicants, all of the public who have testified, and commissioners, you for your always very thoughtful comments. And so, we are not going to take an action today. I think that we've heard a range of comfort level with respect to whether or not you can build a building here on this site at all, to some, some not feeling comfortable at all, some that you can build something here, and then some sort of in between and unsure at this point, pending a different approach. So, but I think what we've heard consistently is that this is not the approach that they would support, and that should you wish to continue and find a path forward, I think that any new building would have to be a very, unique site-specific response to this particular site, engaging the context of not only along the street, particularly to the west of the apartment building, but also the green space and the rear facades of the other buildings, and maybe sort of be its own building type, but be of the quality and level of character and quality that the historic buildings are. So we've had a lot of really thoughtful comments. You can think about those, and we'll take no action today. And when you come back to us, we're happy to talk to you. All right. Thank you. All right, we'll move to. I'm going to switch the agenda a little bit.
We're just going to do one minor schedule adjustment and swap public hearing items number 2 and 3. So we'll now move to public hearing item number 3, LPC 24-05844. This is an application for a binding report in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1, Lot 111, Governor's Island, buildings 111, 112, and 114 in the Governor's Island Historic District. Buildings 111 and 112 are neo-Georgian style officers' quarters designed by Rogers and Thor and constructed in 1934. Building 114 is a neo-Georgian style nurses' quarters, later bachelor officers' quarters designed by Rogers and Thor and constructed in 1934. The application is to construct barrier-free access ramps and install light poles.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, Bill? Just open some windows. Thanks. All right, so just so everybody, in case not everybody heard that, we're moving ahead to, just because we're behind schedule, we're moving ahead to public hearing item number 3, and we will return to item 2 after that.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ward Dennis with Higgins Quay Sparks and Partners. I'm joined by my colleague Trey Beatty, Michael Lim, from Level and Kristen Schultheis from QC Terabay. First of all, I want to say that was a really fascinating discussion just now. This is going to be a little more grounded, I think. We are looking at the Governor's Island on the north side of the island. You previously approved some work for the QC Terme project, a spa on Governor's Island. What we're bringing back to you today are a few updates and revisions based largely on code issues that have come up since the prior approval. So where we are just to the right of Fort J here at these locations between the ferry and, I'm sorry, Fort William. Fort J is over here. There are three buildings in this project. Building 111 and building 112 are these two L-shaped buildings that were constructed in 1934 as officers' housing. And then building 114 is this building off to the left, which was also constructed in 1934 as nurses' quarters. All three of these buildings were designed by Rogers and Poor. At the bottom right, you can see in 114. This is the area of work. One of the things that we are proposing is an ADA ramp here. And on the bottom left is this view of building 111 on the left and building 112 on the right, looking from the Esplanade south. And then existing conditions for building 111. This left is the main view on the facade on Andes Road with its primary entrance. The photo on the right is an oblique view from Andes Road looking down towards this secondary entrance where we are proposing an ADA ramp. You'll also note that there previously approved, there is mechanical screening that goes at that location. And bottom left is a similar view to the historic photo we just saw with building 111 on the left and building 112 on the right, looking into that courtyard. And then the bottom right is the north elevation of building 111. Building 114, as I mentioned, the nurses' quarters. On the top left is the primary entrance, which faces out towards Fort Williams. On the top right is a view from Carter Road looking towards the area. There's construction material in this photo. Looking towards the area where we're proposing an ADA ramp. And bottom left is another view of the primary elevation where we are not doing any work. And then these are some photos and aerial views of the spa. The pools have been constructed. Building 112, which is this building in between the two spas here, is largely complete and in operation. Building 111 construction is proceeding and just beginning on building 114. One of the things that we are going to be proposing to you is introducing a series of freestanding light poles around the pools here. That is a health department requirement to have illumination on any, around any pools that are operating in the evening. And then here's an overview of the scope of work. Building 111, again, on the right here, we're proposing a new ADA ramp to this secondary entrance on the side of the building here. We are also proposing a small kitchen exhaust at the roof of building 111. There is no work on building 112, and then there is a second ADA ramp on building 114. And then the red dots represent the freestanding lighting pylons that we're proposing around the two pools. Sorry, just go back for 1 second. Just a note, Andes Road is sort of the main road that connects you from the ferry moving down with the primary elevations of 111 and 112 here. Most of the views to these ADA ramps are obscured by fencing and mechanical equipment, which was previously approved. So the views from sort of the primary viewpoints to these buildings and the ADA ramps is quite minimal. There is, though, visibility from Carter Road and the East River, the Harbor Esplanade up here. And these photos illustrate some of those views. The fences that you're looking from Andes Road in, and then the view on the far left is from Building 114, looking from Carter Road up. So you have the fences of the pools and everything that largely blocks the visibility to the areas where we're proposing the ramps. On the top is the previously approved design for Building 111. You'll note just to the right of the entrance here, there was previously a wheelchair lift that was proposed. That is no longer allowable by code in this instance. We have a choice of doing a fully enclosed elevator on the face of the building or a ramp. Number of discussions with LPC staff, we have decided to proceed with a ramp, which you see in the bottom image, and I'll take you through in detail. So here are some views on this building. We have 2 steps coming in, but then we have 4 steps on the interior. So there is a very significant, about 5 foot or 4 to 5 foot grade change from the ground level to the first floor, and that's what's being made up by the ADA ramp that you see here. Existing windows, this window will be changed to a door. It matches in design doors that have been approved elsewhere on this building with a simple transom and divided lights below. The ramp itself will have stone or cast stone facing that matches the limestone beyond. We will use the same railing detail for the primary railing of the ramp that you see on the terraces and setbacks of the building, with a simple pipe railing at the handhold level. Detail of the door here. Again, this transom configuration with multi-light and a fixed panel below is the same detail that we've used elsewhere on Building 111 and Building 112. And then rendering, looking sort of from the area where the mechanical equipment is back towards the river. On the right is the proposed, again, the stone is a cast stone or concrete that will be tinted to match the limestone beyond.
Could you just clarify that? Because the note on the previous page said it was stuck up. Are you sure it was stuck?
Concrete tinted to match, yes.
Precast.
Are we doing precast or cast in place?
Right.
Put in place, scored and tinted to match the existing limestone. It might wind up being a put in place with then a cast stone veneer placed on, but it will match the color and it will match the scoring of the limestone. Yeah, not stucco, no, not. In 2 other rendering views of the same location showing the ramp with the switchback in order to get up to the height of the main floor of the building. And then the kitchen exhaust is located on this north roof of Building 111. It will be relatively minimally visible, in part because it's on the north roof, and in part because you have that very large chimney breast immediately to the left of it that blocks the view of the vent from Andes Road. Just a detail here, it's about 4.5 feet total in height with a 3.5 feet clearance from the underside of the vent to the roof, which is the code requirement for the kitchen exhaust. And then Building 114, the ramp is a very similar design, so I won't go through in detail. I'll just point out the differences. Previously, there was a lift that was approved on the south elevation. We're now proposing a ramp on the east elevation. The primary differences from the building 111 design, on this building, we have more steps on the outside as well as steps on the inside. So we have a slightly higher floor level to get up to. And we are proposing steps on the outboard side of the ramp as well as steps connecting the stoop to the ramp itself. Otherwise, I think the details are the same railings, the same concrete finish, the same door detail. And then renderings existing. This is or actually no, this is during construction on the left, and then on the right showing the stone base and the painted metal railing. And then finally, the pylons for the lighting, as I mentioned, health department requires that the pool areas, the area around the pool have lighting in the evening. We're proposing a very simple metal pylon with simple modern fixtures. They're about 10 inches in diameter. The themselves are really related to the pool area itself. They're not intended to relate to the surrounding Governor's Island, which has its own lighting design, but these are really directional lights that are serving a very specific purpose at these 8 locations. And that's the end.
Commissioner, questions? Yes, Commissioner Ginsburg.
Will the lights meet dark sky requirements?
Will the lights meet dark sky requirements?
Do you want to just come up and state?
Yeah, Mike, why don't you come up
and answer the question?
I believe so. There is a.
Just say your name.
It's Michael Lim from Robert D. Henry Architects. I'm sorry, you're asking whether the lights will be
dark sky compliant?
No, because they are needed for the illumination of the deck in the pool itself. And there is a specific foot candle level that is needed. So,
but the lights are illuminating the.
What I'm asking basically is there going to be any light coming from these fixtures that goes up? Okay, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Chen.
Not around the same line. This is the lowest lighting height that you can do. Is there any alternative to, let's say, around the blue side that would be acceptable to the city?
I think this is about the most optimal height without the light being placed in the pool or around the deck. So, so I would say yes, it is the most optimal height that we can do.
Yeah, and it's to the question earlier about, the Governor's Island have what standards of, so my concern is really not twofold. One is obviously this becomes a very modern sort of addition so I'm looking at a lot of lighting, the Far East is developing, but far more creative, far less intrusive, but that's the same purpose on a lower level, meaning that you can do in-ground lighting, so that's why I'm asking, and if it's necessary to be on a vertical height, then the question is, why not follow the Governor's Island standard rather than having a new element added to this compound?
Most of the Governor's Island lighting are lampposts, which serve a slightly different function than these, which are really directional to the pool area itself, and in-ground lighting would not meet the code requirements. I will say that we did look at options, for instance, installing lighting on the facade of the building surrounding. That we did not think worked, because you needed much bigger fixtures and you're sending light much further. So they were much more obtrusive. I think that these fixtures and these poles are minimally obtrusive within this area and really seen in the context of the pools themselves, not in the context of the rest of the Governor's Island plan for lighting.
What size are the fixtures?
The fixtures are 10 inches in diameter.
Okay. And these poles are between the wings of this building, or the sort of two parts of this building, and then another building. So they are all sort of concealed behind buildings.
Yeah.
But the road drive does go along the waters, along the water do you have a picture that shows how you experience it from there? I think you may not see these ever in the context with.
On the left is a picture of standing on that drive, looking up towards building 114. So you have a fence, with greenery on the fence that obscures the view into the pools. And the poles would just be seen around the pools in that context.
So in the picture on the left, where is the pool? I just can't tell. And
the pool is like
we are
right at this level here. This is this pool here. So we're standing here looking up.
Okay, so that's the one between the buildings.
Yeah.
What about the one with 111?
Do we have a 111?
Don't think so. This is a picture looking up towards that pool area. But we don't have one that's looking directly at the pool.
But this is from that drive.
Yeah.
So you do see it from the drive.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Master.
Then the ADA ramp, I noticed that the ADA ramp for building 114 looks a little bit more funky, complex than the other ADA ramps. Can you explain why that's so?
Yeah, Michael, can you address that? The difference in configuration between 111 and 114 with the additional steps.
I think that this was the main reason that it looks slightly bulkier is because of the run that we need to rise to the specific height, making the run itself tighter and smaller. Third in 111, it is slightly more spread out, and this building 114 is not as wide as 111. And in order to sort of make it to that level, we can only, can only contain ourselves within that specific space.
And I think your question was also about the additional steps as well.
Yeah, because it's up and then there's steps that kind of go down.
Yeah. So the steps itself was more, we wanted to provide this for convenience also, like so that other people will be able to use it and not just it's not just an accessible route. So you are able to from that side and also from both left and right, and also at the same time it's accessible.
And I guess that the additional steps that you have is to make that other door also kind of flush. Where the ramp ends and where the main entrance is. So there's two entrances that can access this. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Jefferson.
I have a thing about arsenic exhaust. The issue here is, I'm looking at the detail and LPC-14. You're adding a piece. And roof. The question is what the color of the roof is, what material. And two, your detail says something field built wooden curb. And then from that it goes up and then you have to the component of the exhaust. Why so complicated? Why not just simply the exhaust comes up and you have to curb at the roof level?
We'll be able to answer that specific question.
When you have a chimney, you have some kind of material coming up, and then you have another material going up the sheet level.
So it's A and B, right? Two different materials, are they the same material?
My only response to that is that it was a recommendation, the best recommendation from our kitchen consultant, that this will provide the most optimal venting.
Okay, not that, but the roof membrane, does it go up? It should, the vertical part. If it should never, what is it?
I think is your question, can the curb be eliminated and the flashing waterproofing be taken up the up the vent itself? I'm not sure that we can answer that, but I think we could look at that with staff if that was.
Which side of the roof is this on?
This is on the north side of the roof, so yeah. This is the elevation looking from the river, and then it's here on the north side of the roof. So Andy's Road, main road, and from the rest of Governor's Island, you would not see this. You would not see this vent.
Commissioner Ginsburg.
I think to partially answer your question, and it's an educated guess, that wrapping is insulated. And by doing that, you're reducing the thermal of the duct.
Yes.
It's already insulated, right? Okay. There might be simpler ways to do that. It's just a question of adding another element, that's all.
Other questions? Yes, Commissioner Chen.
Just one last comment. Having been to Governor's Island numerous times, I just want to just following that observation that was for the future. I think the 111 building where the ramp is becoming a very important main facade, even though it's on the side, because Andy's Road is so prominent. That's the main road when you come off the ferry, and the accumulation of mechanical enclosures and all of that cumulatively may create I think it should be deserving of more of a main facade treatment in that regard, given now especially the handicap access will be on that side.
Yeah, and that top right photo is current conditions from Andy's Road. There's a construction.
Yeah, it's a prominent facade.
It is not where the ramps are being proposed, so.
Yeah, I'm talking about the right over there. That you come
I see.
Yeah, and on that right hand side. That's what. Okay. This is Andy's Road with the front facades. This is the facade that Commissioner Chen is talking about.
The treatment of this one of this area going into the ramp area. Care, temperature and attention to landscaping.
And if you've been by recently, that is all under construction, so it's not completed yet. So.
Okay.
With all judgment.
All right, any other questions? Let's see if we have public testimony. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak on this item? Noting that there isn't, I will turn it to Gregory to see if we have any remote participants.
Thank you, Chair Carroll. We have a couple of hands raised in our Zoom attendance list. The first we'll be hearing from is Christina Conroy from the Victorian Society of New York. Christina Conroy, I'm promoting you to panelist right now. So please unmute your line and state your name for the record. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Christina Conroy for the Victorian Society. Now, our testimony was written before the explanations we heard just now. We found ourselves at a disadvantage because we didn't know the reason for the abandonment of the earlier proposal for lifts. We also had no information about the interiors, which might explain why access to Building 111 couldn't be done through the nearly grade level front door with level changes accommodated on the interior. These approaches would have much less effect on the symmetrical exteriors of these neoclassical buildings. Now, when substantial ramp structures are built, the goal is usually to achieve universal access through the front door. But in neither building does the proposed ramp enter through the adjacent architecturally embellished main door. This makes the case for such substantial structures less compelling. The two ramp structures would be more harmonious with the buildings if they were faced with brick and limestone rather than stucco. They would then more closely replicate the experience of using the main architectural entrance. This should always be an objective in providing ADA access. The ramp for Building 111 might usefully incorporate the existing raised terrace at the west facade. Regarding the proposed light poles, we recall the approval a year ago following extensive discussions for site-wide lighting at Governor's Island. The approval states that, quote, the proposed light poles featuring wood poles fitted with black finished light fixtures in varying heights are simply designed and utilitarian in nature and connect with the island's maritime history related to the U.S. Coast Guard and Army, end of quote. We find it odd that the posts being proposed today bear no relationship to that approved design. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we'll be hearing from Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council. So Lucy Levine, I'm promoting you to panels right now. Please be line and state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Lucy Levine. I'm speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds this proposal to be appropriate, but in need of some material refinement. HDC is glad that the project will bring necessary ADA access to this building. We believe that quality is a mark of equality. So this mode of access should be just as beautiful as the existing building. Because of that, we believe this ramp should be clad in limestone rather than the proposed, quote, stucco finish to match existing limestone. Additionally, the ramp's steel railing and guardrail would benefit from the addition of some brick masonry piers similar to what currently exists at the terrace railing and would help this vital piece of access infrastructure, which we are so glad will be part of this building, to blend more seamlessly with the existing structure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do not see any further hand raised for this item. So I will note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 1 recommends approval. And I will bring it back to you, Chair Carroll.
Hi, thank you. So, would you like to respond to the comments?
Sure. I would, as the Victorian Society noted, and we noted in the presentation, most of these issues are being brought up because of code changes or code issues that have come up during construction. So the lifts that were previously approved do not meet code. We've talked with staff about that and what the options are, and we don't meet any of the exceptions to do a lift, which is why we propose a ramp. As discussed, the finish of the ramp will be concrete finish that matches the limestone beyond. We could certainly look at other ways of doing that finish, but the intent absolutely is that it will match the limestone. The comment about the brick piers, I think our goal was to keep this as minimal as possible. The brick piers would add mass. I understand that they would relate to other elements on the building. I'm not sure that that's not the design direction that we wanted to go, and I'm not sure that that's the right design direction. And then on the lighting, again, this is 8 light fixtures that are specifically for this place. Like the fixtures on the rest of the island, they are simple and utilitarian, but they are serving a different purpose in a different location.
And I don't know if you know this, but are they of kind of a different scale as well? I know some of the ones we approved for the island were significantly larger.
Yeah, I mean, they have different scale, different function. They're really intended to like specific area ways.
Right, so they are sort of these discrete units between the buildings. All right, commissioners, any final questions? Okay. Commissioner Lutfi, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. And Commissioner Brand, would you second that motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed and we'll begin our discussion. And we have two components to review. One is the pair of ramps that are being proposed for the buildings that are the result of code changes that preclude the use of mechanical lifts that were previously approved here. And then the 8 light fixtures, 4 for each pool that are surrounding the pool between the buildings. So we'll begin our discussion. Commissioner Chapin, would you like to start this one?
Okay. I think in general that it's a fine proposal, and you know, it's unfortunate that they have to use ramps, but you know, they're complying with the code. So I think, you know, given that they have generally done as much as possible to reduce the ramps. I note that on the proposed ramp at building 114, there's that maybe that intermediate landing extension for the additional stair access could be eliminated if they could do that. So otherwise, I don't have any issues with the proposal.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I think that as you correctly asked, the question is really the lighting. I think that will really set the tone for the area. So I will suggest to the applicant to be as sensitive as possible to selection and minimize the impact of the lighting because it's a foreign element.
Ginsburg?
So I think the lighting is fine, and I understand why you need to do it the way you do. Just to comment, the reason lifts are now being banned is they require maintenance and they're often not maintained. So the code has gone to ramps, which even though it has issues for us, I think makes a lot of sense. And then finally, on the concrete, I've seen cast in place concrete that is gorgeous. I've also seen cast in place concrete that is horrible. And so as long as it's done right and you can work the staff to do it, it should be fine and will look like the stone adjacent to it, but it has to be done right.
You, Commissioner Goldblum?
So far, I just want to add that the lights should be closer and work with the staff. The lights, the extension, be closer and perhaps with the part of they aren't the exact same. I think we should be all of them.
All right, but the main thing about the ones that we approved is that they were that reclaimed wood with then black fixtures, and so. These being kind of thinner and discreet, you know,
It's about for them. They weren't really that way.
but are you just, when you're saying that they should be more similar to it, are you suggesting a change in material? That's just what I want to be clear on.
I guess, yeah. I don't remember the ones we approved in the walkways.
Wood, yeah.
But I think that, you know, having another one that's visible from, you know, what we have. Maybe I wouldn't.
Relates better.
I would just add that these night lights need to be directional and light the lights in the sidewalk, so they have to be somewhat different.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
I agree with the comments of my fellow commissioners.
Right, Commissioner Master?
I agree with all the previous comments.
Chu?
I'm okay with the lights and I would take the steps off of the 114 landing only because an able-bodied person would still walk the same distance to get to the front door anyhow. So, and we'll get more steps on it.
Commissioner Lutfi?
I am okay with the ramps, although I agree with this Commissioner Chu's last comment and about And I'm okay with the lighting as it is.
Okay. And Vice Chair.
Yes, I'm in agreement, and I just note that I think the world is getting used to ramps, we know why they're there. When we're done as carefully as they are when they come before this board, we accept them as a necessary addition to buildings.
All right, so I think we have enough to approve it with the condition that they eliminate the ramp, the steps, the additional steps on the ramp at building 114. So Commissioner Chapin, would you make that motion?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Okay, just a sec. In the matter of a binding report, Borough of Manhattan, LPC 2405844, Governor's Island Buildings 111, 112, and 114, Governor's Island Historic District. Buildings 111 and 112 are neo-Georgian style officers' quarters designed by Rogers and Poor and constructed in 1934. And building 114 is a neo-Georgian style nurses' quarters, later bachelor officers' quarters, designed by Rogers and Poor and constructed in 1934. Application is to construct barrier-free access ramps and install light poles. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Governor's Island Historic District. I recommend approval with modification, finding that the proposed work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the installation of the proposed ramps will allow for barrier-free access in the least intrusive manner possible, that the proposed modifications of windows to doors at the barrier-free access ramp landings will entail removal of only a minimal amount of historic fabric, and the proposed doors will feature divided lights to match the dimensions and details of the adjacent windows, that the proposed scored stucco cladding at the sides of the ramps will match the color, proportions, and finish of the historic limestone at the building base, and the black finished railings will be consistent with ironwork found elsewhere in the historic district. That the proposed exhaust vent at the roof of I'm sorry, hold on a minute. That the proposed exhaust vent at the roof of building 111 will be visible only from select vantage points north on Carter Road in conjunction with the existing adjacent brick chimneys. That the proposed light poles in both courtyards will be evenly spaced and correspond to pedestrian pathways around the modern pool amenities, and will be primarily seen from perimeter pathways at the edge of the island, and therefore will not overwhelm or detract from the buildings or the historic district. That the metal poles will match the proportions, size, and finish of existing commission-approved wayfinding and light poles throughout the historic district, and that the proposed work will support the reactivation and connectivity of the historic buildings and sites throughout the Governor's Island Historic District. However, I recommend that the intermediate landing extension for additional stair access at the southern end of the proposed ramp at building 114 be eliminated to lessen the size, footprint, and busyness of the already large installation.
All right, thank you. And Commissioner Chen, would you second that motion? Mark, will you call the vote?
Chair Carroll.
Aye.
Commissioner Bland. Commissioner Chapin.
Aye.
Commissioner Chen. Aye. Commissioner Chu. Aye. Commissioner Ginsburg. Aye. Commissioner Goldblum. Aye. Commissioner Jefferson. Aye. Commissioner Lefty. Aye. Commissioner Master.
Aye.
With 10 in favor and none opposed, the motion passes.
That's approved. Thank you. All right, so we did already adjust the schedule. So we have skipped public hearing item number 2. So with that and where we are now, we are about an hour behind schedule. We're going to take a lunch break now and come back promptly at 2 because our afternoon is scheduled to go to the end of the day, and being an hour behind schedule, that will just put the pressure on the end. So we'll ask all members of the public to voluntarily exit the Zoom meeting at this time, so that should you wish to return, you don't experience technical difficulties that might occur if we remove you. And we'll ask everybody to leave the public hearing room, and we will resume at 2 o'clock. Thank you.